Good morning. It's the second day of December 2017. Welcome to the show. This is NewDay Saturday Edition with me, Abna Tibi. It's a day after the National Farmers' Day of 2017 was celebrated, and congratulations to the winners at the awards in Kumasi yesterday, and also congratulations and thank you to farmers and fishers of Ghana. We thank you sincerely for all your hard work and for feeding us all throughout the years. As usual, the show will be running from now till 9:50, where conversations will be brought to a close. But before then, we would have done some serious analysis of issues lined up for today's conversation. We're coming to you live from the studios of TV3 here in Accra. We are also live on 3FM 92.7. We are streaming live online all around the world on 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana, and on GhanaWeb.com. We encourage you to send through your messages, texts on our WhatsApp number 050060770. The number would appear shortly on your screens. We encourage you to send through your messages, and we'll be happy to share them with the rest of the world. Coming up on the show this morning, we will be looking at the celebration of the National Farmers' Day. And we'll be asking questions here whether or not the day still remains relevant for and to our farmers and fishers, and indeed to the development of the country as a whole. Now, as you may already know, the Farmers' Day celebration was instituted by the Provisional National Defense Council, PNDC, in 1985 in recognition of the vital role farmers and fishers played in the economy, especially the highly commendable output of farmers and fishermen in 1984, coming after the poor yields in the years 1982 and 1983. The year has since then been celebrated, and yesterday, as I said earlier, we had the 33rd edition, which saw some winners emerging in Kumasi. But the question as to whether or not the day remains relevant has come up strongly, particularly as the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union, GAWU, an umbrella organization of the Trades Union Congress, has asked government to cancel the celebration of Farmers' Day as a statutory public holiday, arguing that it has no significance to the country's hard-working farmers and fishers. What do you think? Is it relevant? Is it not? These are the questions we'll be asking when the panel joins the show later on. Also up for discussion is the Libya situation, or let me put it, the migrant crisis and refugee crisis currently ongoing in Libya, where we have seen human beings being auctioned for sale as little as $400, like other commodities and goods. Now, we do know that within the last few days, or last several days, Libya has been cast into the spotlight after footage of a slave auction was released online by international media network CNN. The video detailed the stories of migrants who were captured by smugglers and sold into slavery as they attempted to travel through Libya to Europe, obviously in search of greener pastures. Now, each year for the past 3 years, more than 150,000 migrants and refugees, according to the International Organization for Migration, IOM, have crossed into Europe from Libya. More than 3,000 people have drowned each of the past 4 years trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea in Europe. Now, it is reported by the international media that through the assistance of the Italian security agencies, the Libyan Coast Guard has been capturing vessels smuggling people into Europe. And it's estimated that between 400,000 and 1 million migrants may have been accordingly trapped in Libya, hence the auctioning of the captured migrants by their smugglers. Now, this week, some 127 Ghanaians were evacuated back home from detention centers in Libya with tales of sordid experiences. We are asking questions. How do we curb the practice of our fellow Ghanaians traveling to such destinations or through such routes? only to come back with sordid tales of experiences they've been through, all in the name of, excuse me, seeking greener pastures. We'll be looking at the situation as it pertains to the local context, but also look at it within the global conversation currently ongoing. Also up for discussion is the homosexuality debate, which has been sparked yet again, coming against the backdrop of the president's recent interview with the international network Al Jazeera. So we are asking questions. What is Ghana going to do? While some African countries like Uganda and Nigeria have amended their laws to strengthen the prescription or prohibition of homosexuality, others like Malawi at the last check were considering a possible legalization of homosexuality. In Ghana, however, following our president's recent interview with Al Jazeera, not only has the debate about the legalization of homosexuality come to the front burner again, but also another question coming up strongly for discussion is whether our laws, as they currently stand on our books, sufficiently define homosexuality in all its forms, and whether or not the laws, as they currently stand, effectively bans the act. Now, regarding the president's interview with Al Jazeera, while some section of Ghanaians think that his response was appropriate in the context of intellectual analysis of the evolution of laws, others think that he failed to be definitive in upholding what they describe as the Ghanaian values and principles. There are also those who think that some aspects of the president's answer constitute an invitation to the gay rights movement or gay rights activists to perhaps begin mounting pressure on government to legalize homosexuality in Ghana. We shall be looking at the president's interview on the subject relative to the preparedness or otherwise of the country to accommodate such developments. At this point, we'll take a break. When we come back, I will introduce the panelists for today's conversations, and we'll delve deep into the subjects that we've outlined for today's conversations. You're watching New Day, Saturday Edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is New Day, Saturday Edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and around the world online on 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. I'll quickly introduce the panelists for today's conversations and we get straight to business. From my extreme left, we have Mr. Kasise Ricky Pepra. He is the founder of the Youth Enterprise Development Network. Next is Mr. Kamaldeen Abdullahi. He is the Nasara coordinator of the New Patriotic Party, NPP. Next, we have the Honorable Murtala Mohammed. He is the former MP for Nanton constituency, also former Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry. And last but not least is Mr. Bobby Bansing. He is a private legal practitioner. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning.
We'll start off with this heated, debate about the legalization of homosexuality in Ghana, to do or not to do. And this is coming against the backdrop of a recent interview that the president granted to Al Jazeera. I mean, his comments or his response to this question, how come Ghana hasn't legalized homosexuality, has raised a number of issues. I mean, there's been mixed reactions to it. Some are saying he wasn't definitive enough. Others are saying, well, he was saying that with an open mind, I mean, suggestive of the fact that there could be a certain groundswell that would necessitate, the legalization of that act. So around the table quickly, do you agree? I'll start with you, Kasise. What did you make of the president's response?
Thank you very much. Without a blink of an eye, I'll tell you I had no problem with the president's statement. We are very quick to read meanings into certain statements. You see, every statement has to be taken within its context. And in fact, the context includes not just the place, but the person, and in this case, his profession. I have said and written quite voluminously on this matter. And I'm saying that those who are quick to make comparisons between that and what was said by the late Professor Atta Mills and ex-President John Mahama have taken no notice of the circumstances, no notice of the posture of the questioner, no notice of the words used in asking the question. To cut a long story short, I didn't see anything wrong with what the president said. If anything at all, it was a real politique answer. The truth of the matter is whether President Addo says it will be legalized or not. Commonsensical analysis of all the things that have been going on in this world will tell you that that is where we are heading to. Whether it's tomorrow, next week, or next year, is a different matter. So I was particularly shocked about the entrenched position people were taking and said that he should have just said that. Let me add a very interesting twist. A friend of mine called from the States and said he wished we attached the same amount of passion to handling our matters of corruption. Just the way we were handling this matter on whatever. But on the debate on homosexuality, let us be very, very careful. I always ask people who are so loud, if your son is gay, if your daughter is a lesbian, what are you going to do about that? And we should take inspiration from what Pope Francis said when he was asked, what does he say about gays? And he says he cannot imagine God being angry with his own children. And that what they need is love. Look, call me whatever. I've worked with some people who are gays outside of this country. In fact, I was startled when I found out that two otherwise handsome, personable, gorgeous, well-dressed, creative men. And it didn't even occur to me that they were both wearing identical rings. I decided to like them individually until I found out they were a couple. Was I shocked? Yes. But what moral right do I have? And let me end on another biblical note. When they said they should stone Magdalene to death, Jesus Christ said, let he who has no sin cast the first stone. People can go to the Bible and the Quran and find many reasons why this is abominable. But for the same reason, some of us, we shouldn't have our hands on, because the Quran says that if you steal with the leg, I stand to be corrected, that hand should be cut off. No. Oh,
he said he's not to be corrected, so so perhaps yes.
Anyway, so the truth of the matter is...
Tell us what the right phrase is.
The truth of the matter is that it's something that as a society we are uncomfortable with, very uncomfortable with. But that should not mean that we should, quote unquote, crucify the president for a very legitimate and very...
So how would you respond to those who are saying that, I mean, Ghana as a country or as a state has a certain set of principles, values that clearly, I mean, such an act would be would be an affront to?
One of the first Ghanaians who served as an international functionary, the person has passed away, and I don't think I have the right to mention their name, was gay.
But does that make it...
No. So okay. I'm saying that we have lived with these people, and we have loved them, and we have used their resources. There's another gentleman who is prominent in the gay scene. Get to know him, you will not have a problem with him. Look, if the thing does not agree with your sensibilities, nobody says you should love it. Now, in this whole business of Ghana, we have the culture and so forth. Let us be very honest. We have a political construct. I personally have my issues with what they have decided to rename female genital mutilation. I grew up knowing it as excision, and I knew that it had some laudable aspects to it. We get up one day, decide to demonize it, make it a crime, put it in the books, and that is it. We have not done that to gayism, homosexuality. The last time I ventured being legal, I was put back on my track. So you, the legal people,
we'll get there.
Yeah, you, the legal people, have decided that there's something called unnatural carnal knowledge, and that is about the closest to this whole business.
I don't think it's the legal people. It's the state that decided.
I knew that I wouldn't get this. Anyway, so the point I'm simply trying to say is that we have not proscribed that thing in its entirety.
Right.
And until we have done that, it is a human right of these people. And I believe that the thing about democracy is that you don't have to like what the other person does. You don't have to agree. You have to just allow the person to feel the way they feel, because you too are feeling the way you feel.
Very well.
Unfortunately, our constituency is not as enlightened as one would have wished. So recently there was this issue in, I think, Kumasi or somewhere, where a boy was malhandled because he made some overtures to another boy. We need to be careful, especially those of you who speak and make policy, that we do not give people the indication that Ghanaians abhor it so much that people will take it to extremes.
Very well. I'll move on to Honorable Mutalahi and hear his comments, but perhaps you also tell us exactly what the right phrase is, what Kasise tried to. Well, so we get it out there, yeah. Well,
let me say
let's hear you on what you think of the President's statement. Yeah.
My colleagues and, of course, your cherished viewers and the good people of Nanton constituency. Let's get something very clear. Our laws oppose it. If you look at Section 6 of the Criminal Code 1966 as amended 2003. Chapter 6, sorry. It's very clear that unnatural carnal sex, it's unnatural to put your manhood into something that you ought not put there. It's unnatural. It doesn't necessarily need to state specifically that homosexualism or gay. But
I get it. But the question to which the President responded was, why isn't it legalized? So currently, yes, the laws make it, illegal to an extent. But the question is, why isn't it legalized?
So I'll come to that. If you could allow me, so that
you flow.
Yes, I flow. Let me also state clearly, because you made a statement in reference to Islam, that Islam says that when you steal, they should cut one hand, and then when you steal, that is absolutely, and I don't fault you, because that's the view non-Muslims and many people hold. That is not what Islam says. In fact, the law of Sharia is talking about the fact that there are processes. There are processes to investigate, and those processes, just like our laws, our secular law, must be anchored on evidence, supported by what? The law, in this case, the Quranic law. That is the law of God, the divine law, that there must be processes. And it is not as simple as it is being peddled. I think that we would need more than an hour to have a discussion on this. But let me state that His Excellency the President simply could have done what other leaders did, not what President Muhammad did, not what Prof. Mills did. And you talked about the fact that the circumstances are different. The one asking the question. Between a president demanding something and a journalist demanding, which one carries more weight? You have president, in fact, and these two presidents, former presidents, have been touted as people who championed the cause of this thing. President Obama and President Cameron of United Kingdom. You had President Obama who went to his home country, that is his father country, and Uhuru Kenyatta told him that the issue of gay is a non-topic. We won't even discuss it. That is one. You have the President of Senegal who was confronted with the same thing. He said, look, we will not do it. Now Cameroon indeed tied.
Even Yahya Jammeh, when he was there, he did say that.
Cameroon even warned. He said that many countries will be denied aid. And Prof. Mills said, you can't keep your aid. His Excellency President Muhammad said, look, our values and everything abhors that we cannot do it. Absolutely. What people expected from the president was to be definite. Don't tell me that because the president is a lawyer, of course, he's a lawyer of outstanding repute, if you like. But the point is that the laws in this country also recognizes the values and principles. The laws we have in Ghana is the common law of the United Kingdom, and which is our customary laws are also what? Added to make them the laws of Ghana. It's not every customary law that is now a law in this country. If a customary law says that kill people, I don't think that we would have imbibed those things as part of our laws.
But speaking of the common law, I mean, the current provision we have on our statute is definitely, or was borrowed from there. But they have moved on to accept the act. But so isn't it within that context, perhaps, the president engaging in, if you like, an intellectual discourse, and usually intellectual discourse, comes with open-mindedness, the possibility of things happening, and that is against the backdrop of what has happened recently over the world.
Presidents don't have open-minded views on everything. Do you know in the international parlance, or international foreign position, a simple statement of a president can represent a foreign policy position of a country. You have a huge it will.
Or a tweet.
A tweet or a tweet. I like that. So you don't just say anything. I am saying that, look, Abner, I will be the last person who would assume that the president would want to. Certainly, he's a married man. He's a man with family, of course, married between man and woman. I am saying that he needed to have been definite. You see, if you want to look at it religiously, and I would speak on it as a Muslim, and I believe that majority of us, not only Christians and Muslims, even traditionalists in Africa, abhors that. Now, if you look at, there is a saying, even in the Quran, that when they were sent to punish the people of Lut, they came to Prophet Abraham, as he is called in the Bible. That we have been, they came to his house, they never told him their mission, they came to him, they gave extended glad tidings to him, and said, look, we have been sent to punish these people. And each, we have stones of fire, specifically written names of every single individual on a specific stone. And you know what Allah says in the Quran? That if you fail to speak out against them, when punishment comes, it will not only be limited to them, it will be extended to you. Now, I have listened to people who claimed that it is about the circumstances. The British and the Americans and the West have values they protect. Why can't you discuss the Queen of England even in the British Parliament? Why is it that the British Queen is sacrosanct with even certain laws in the United Kingdom? Because they are protecting their values that makes them who they are. We have our values. And our value says a marriage is between a man and a woman. A marriage under no circumstance can be between man and a woman. And our laws, a man and a man. And our laws recognize that. I am saying that there isn't any cherry picking here. And under the guise of human rights, you know, now the fact that if you have a child who may engage in it still doesn't make it illegitimate.
But how do you deal with that situation? How do you deal with that situation?
We ought to condemn it. It doesn't matter whether, unfortunately, you would have your children, may God forbid, engage in that. It's still wrong. It's just like when you tell me that, yes, terrorism is now very common as it wasn't as compared in the past. So must we accept it? Because it is common? Because it is found everywhere in the world now? Must we accept it? No! We mustn't accept it because it is something that is an abomination. And let's face it, people are scared to talk about it because we have been intimidated. Currently, as we sit today, the political party that governs United States of America, their philosophy, their principles is against it. There are threats to even ensure that they, if you like, criminalize it. Isn't it? I'm saying that the very people who think that they must impose their will on us. And I'm saying that, look, let us stop this pretense of trying to say that, okay, society has evolved. It's about human rights. Wait a minute. It is the right of someone to go and kill another person.
But
that is the, I'm saying that those who kill, they kill finding justifications why they do that, but it's still wrong.
Let's interrogate this some more within the context. The president in his response did say that, yes, he talked about the fact that England some years ago, I mean, this issue, you don't even talk about it, but times changed and they have accepted it. Yeah. That's a fact.
Of course.
That in certain countries, until recently, this act was totally aboard. So are you ruling out the possibility, totally, that it could happen? And that if there's a groundswell of that level of support for it.
If leaders want it to happen, it will happen. But I'm saying the statement such as that, it gives impetus to those who would want to push it. Now, if you say that there hasn't been a serious coalition, if there's coalition, so it means you will. Because that is it may not be what he was intending, but that is the impression you give out there. And you know, go to social media. Some of them have started speaking out. Some in the United States and America saying that, look, they have started speaking out. That may not be the intention of His Excellency the President when he was making that statement. But I'm saying that the moment you make that statement, it can be misconstrued. And people would think that we are giving a tacit approval. Now, let us also get something very clear. It is not as if every lawyer things like that must be respected. There are lawyers who also have strong positions against that.
Sure.
And it doesn't make them anti-human rights lawyers. It doesn't. Even in the eyes of trying to see that we perpetuate and deepen and broaden human rights and values, we also need to do that in tandem with values that are acceptable. Now tell me, it is an issue with us now that you raise a genuine concern, that assuming that one day your kids are engaged in it, how would you feel? You certainly would feel bad. It still doesn't make it moral right. I am saying, let's get something very clear. For me, I think that the president would have been definite, and I'm not making that in reference to what happened, but in reference to position taken by several leaders, not only in Africa. There are several leaders who have taken those positions. Those who contested elections in the United States of America, particularly on the side of the Republican Party, some of them made their positions very, very clearly. The current vice president of the United States of America openly and publicly condemned that because they don't think that it's in sync with their values as Christians. And you see,
but that's the point. And I'm asking this because I'm here trying to, you know, play the devil's advocate, look at both issues, because this is a very contentious issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're looking at a situation where the example, I mean, Kasise gave, assuming, I mean, God forbid, like you said, that your child came home one day and said,
no,
you know,
someone's child. God forbid.
Is not you, generic, okay, came home and said that. Like you're saying, the fact you don't necessarily endorse it, but it's a situation you need to deal with it. Now, how do you ensure, I mean, within the scope or the space where it is totally aboard, how is such a person supposed to live and live in a way that has meaning to that person? For me, as someone, as a psychologist, I think that is a kind of illness, to be very honest. So instead of legalizing it, you think we should be addressing?
We should not legalize it. For me, under no circumstance should we even be thinking of legalizing something that indeed is in total and absolute contravention to our values and principles as a people. Abena, you know one interesting thing.
Quickly, and then I move to come out.
It has even health hazards. My understanding is that those men who are engaging, they even wear pampers. No, I'm serious. Because you put the thing where you ought not. God created us and with some distinct qualities and features, how they can be done. Why is it that there are a lot of health consequences? That they wear pampers, and that if you go to buy pampers, I'm told that they have pampers for elderly people. What for? I am saying that if you look at the consequences of it itself, on the basis of even the health consequences, we ought to make this thing punishable. And I'm saying it's very clear. The criminal code or criminal act as amended is very clear. So let people stop hiding behind, okay, it is not clearly stated. It is not every law in this country that is clearly stated. We live in a country where they say that a president you have 2 times to contest. Has the Constitution says that after the 2 times you cannot contest. But the framers of the Constitution would have taken those things into consideration. Let's get something very clear. If you go to United Kingdom, how the Queen, a new king, what's the name? Queen is you can't discuss Bank of England even in their parliament. Why? So must we take everything they do, hook, line, and sinker? And the fact that they didn't have that and now they have that, we must. Then we must go ahead and do everything. They live individualistic in nature. We live as communal in nature. Even those of us who pretend to be having a nuclear families, you live in Accra. Do you live in the house with only your wife and your kids? You may have your nieces and cousins who are with you. Even if they don't stay with you, their responsibility is still on you. I think that we must speak out. And let's call a bluff of this threat and intimidation of the fact that if you do not accept it, I am saying that if you do that, and as a Muslim, as the Quran says, that when the punishment comes, it will not only go to those who engage in it, those of you who have become timorous souls and refuse to speak out because of the so-called human rights, you would be punished.
Thank you very much, Honorable. I think your reference to Pampers, you meant diapers, because Pampers is just a brand, so please, yes. It could be any other. We just have to put it out there. But
diapers,
and indeed, there are diapers for adults, not for necessarily people engaged in that. Because you have people who are bedridden, adults who are bedridden, who need that. I'm just saying. But that's fine, yes.
But those who
Kamaldeen, let's hear from you. Your reaction to what the response.
My position here on this matter would not be very different from the position of Mutala.
For the first time.
I'm being honest with you. Given my background as a Muslim, and also given my background as an African who has values, who has customs, and believing in them. Clearly, I believe taking what the president said, I mean, in context, one would not say that the president of the Republic of Ghana endorsed, if you like, homosexuality. Never. He never did. And he never also sought to say that let's legalize homosexuality. He never said so. Question is, why is it not legalized? Answer is, our customs values abhors it.
What about the
Finito.
What about
And then he went on. No. Honorable, please.
Oh, please.
Allow him. Honorable, please allow him. Yes, carry on.
Now, wearing his lawyer's cap, like my good friend said.
But does he even need to wear a lawyer's cap to see? No,
he doesn't.
To see, yes, because in recent times we've seen countries shift from an earlier position. So what I'm saying is, he need not have been a lawyer to even
I'm not even
come
sure
up with
he
that.
Shifted from his position. Actually.
Not to say he shifted, but to say that given what has happened or what's happening over the world, there's a likelihood that we will get to that point.
Well, I'm not sure he said there's a likelihood we'll get to that point, because if
not
you
in
even
those
take
exact terms,
very
but
well, not in exact terms. If you listen to him, he actually placed or laid emphasis on our customs and values. Now, having laid emphasis on our customs and values, and if the argument goes like the way Murtala went with his submission, that look, on no account are we going to shelve those values and customs and move to another side, then it means that the matter that you want us to speak to, which points at maybe people saying that the president was like kind of positing that there could be a time where we are going to, as it were, accommodate this. Yeah. Then with the position of Murtala, that there's no day and there will not be that day, and that is my position too, it means that, look, that will never happen. Clearly. Clearly, if we can never, and if there will never be a day where Africans will say, we are shelving this customs and values, we are throwing it away and welcoming this, then it means that day will never come. So where is the point?
But nobody can be sure.
Let me just suppose
we will forever hold on to those, because we've seen countries, like I said in the intro.
No,
I mean, whereas you have Uganda, Nigeria, I mean, amend their laws to further strengthen it. You have others like Malawi who were considering under is it Banda? They were considering it. So clearly,
the law of sovereignty allows them to do what they want to do.
But that's fine. But I'm just situating.
Allows Ghana to do what we want to do.
Awesome. I'm just situating the discussion within a certain context of things that are happening around the world. Yes. We don't live on an island. We lived in a global world, and factors can impact. Factors from different parts can impact on decisions taken. I do appreciate it. We're a sovereign state. We're entitled to do whatever it is. But I'm trying to factor in things that are happening into this conversation. So we have a holistic conversation.
I am not, even as we speak, there are places where we have same sex marriage going on. I mean, that does not mean that clearly we should throw away our customs and values. Of course, these are factors we could cite or examples we could cite somewhere to say that they may serve as an influence or some form of influence in our society and all that. But clearly, if we take a very firm position as a people and say, look, this is what we believe in, and this is not an agenda at all on our table, of course, we have other things to concern ourselves with. So be it, and we move on. Now, I'm juxtaposing the response of our president to the responses that in 2015, the president of Kenya gave, Uhuru Kenyatta. Clearly, what did he say? He said, this is not an issue at all on our table. We don't even have it. We share certain commonalities, yes, like economic values, that you come, entrepreneurial values and all that. That was what he was telling.
He said that we should not.
A quick interjection, then you go.
No. I listened to him. I have a video here and I've watched it. Even this dawn before I left home, I watched. No, even this dawn before.
We can find that and play just to settle the issue.
Look, what he said was that this is not an issue.
We have a video of that. We'll listen to it.
And I have a video too. I watched it. So please, we can watch it now. Sure. He says, look, this is not an issue at all. It's not an issue on the table. We're not discussing that. We could discuss other issues. We talk of development, talk of entrepreneurial stuff, support and all that.
Do we have it now ready? Okay, sure. So let's play that so that we can move on to
something you said a little earlier on about freedom of expression. So I want to ask you about what is happening in your country and homosexuality, for example, which I believe is illegal and it's punishable. I mean, why is homosexuality still illegal in your country?
These the social, cultural issues, if you like. I don't believe that in Ghana so far a sufficiently strong coalition has emerged which is having that impact on public opinion that will say, change it. Let's then have a new paradigm in Ghana.
Is that something you would get behind?
I think that it is something that is bound to happen. And when that happens,
what's going to provoke it? What's going to make it happen?
Oh, it's the activity, like elsewhere in the world. Like elsewhere in the world, the activities of individuals, of groups. I grew up in England. I went to school as a young boy in England, and I grew up at a time in England when homosexuality was banned there. It was illegal, and I lived a period when British politicians thought it was anathema even to think about changing the law, and then suddenly the activities of individuals, of groups, a certain awareness, a certain development grew and grew and grew stronger, and it forced a change in law. I believe that those are the same processes that will bring about changes in our situation. At the moment, I don't see that in Ghana there is that strong current of opinion that is saying this is something that we need to even deal with. It's not. It doesn't. It's not so far a matter which is on the agenda.
Okay, so that was the president there responding to the question put to him by the Al Jazeera anchor. But I think the Uhuru Kenyatta issue that you came up with, yes, we're trying to get that video. When we get it, we will play, but if not,
thought that was what we're going to listen to anyway. But I still maintain my position. My position is that Uhuru Kenyatta's response was just similar to what President Nana-Addo actually said. Clearly, don't worry. They'll get a video and then you'll be okay, you'll be satisfied. Point is that if you say it's not an issue at all on the table, and that we have other issues to concern ourselves with, and of course our culture, our customs and values abhors it. That was what Uhuru Kenyatta said. The same way Nana-Addo puts it. Nana-Addo then goes further. Okay, look at formulation of laws. Of course, I, for once, and I'll say this emphatically, I am against it, and I will remain someone against homosexuality, no matter what happens. There's no day I'm going to speak for homosexuality. I'm going to speak for same-sex marriage and all that. There's no day I'm going to do that anyway. But moving forward, being practical about it, what actually informs the formulation of laws? Pressure sometimes actually informs it. Is that not right? Pressure sometimes, informs it. Now, if the president of the republic then says, look, going forward, I'm aware that in this jurisdiction where I grew up, there was no pressure at all on this matter. At a point in time, pressure was mounted on it. They decided to succumb. Once again, it is their jurisdictional matter, it is their law, it is their sovereign right to do what they want to do. But you see, here in Ghana, I don't see it at all. It means that practically what the president said, it happened somewhere.
But that's why those who are arguing that, that's why those who are arguing, excuse me, Honorable, that the statement, Honorable, please allow me, the statement where the president said that there hasn't been, as it were, that groundswell yet, perhaps then is an invitation to people, activists out there who haven't had the temerity to come out to then say, okay, perhaps if we garnered support and mobilized sufficiently, we could make an impact.
As we speak, I am aware that there were some reports that the website belonging to homosexual groups at the White House was pulled down at a point. There were reports pointing out to that. And of course, this is a country where we have advocates for homosexuality. Are you aware? And of course, if that happened there, here in our country, what is the value? What is the stance? What is actually our stand when it comes to homosexuality? Complete abhorrence. That is what it is.
That complete abhorrence, perhaps, is what people are saying. They didn't see that necessarily coming from the president in that response.
Oh, what did he say? My customs and values, I'm a Ghanaian and I belong to it.
But there hasn't been that,
however, he didn't say that.
Coalition yet.
He didn't say that. The president didn't say that.
The president says our customs and values abhor. He didn't say he.
He didn't say that.
Oh.
He never said that.
We'll play it again.
No.
We'll play it again just for clarity's sake. But that's fine. You need to, Honorable, please, let Kamaldeen speak.
And I'm saying that, yes, in formulating laws, pressure sometimes actually pushes you to come out. Even in the common law, jurisdiction. When you sit as a judge, happenings in society sometimes compels you to even move from the substantive law that you have or the subjective law that you have before you. Then, of course, listening to the masses and listening to the people because of public opinion. These are factors that inform the formation of law. Nonetheless, it doesn't also mean. It doesn't also mean. Okay. Wait a minute. It does. It does. Find out. Find out. I am saying a judge. No. Then find out with the golden rule that applies to interpretation of laws. Sometimes they move from what they have as a subjective law and use the common law principle to issue judgment. That happens. And I'm saying that if all these factors inform the formulation of laws, then an argument comes up that, look, pressure could actually push us from where we are. Why not? What happens? Now, take Nigeria, for example. What was the response of Buhari? Outright. He says, look, our customs, our laws doesn't allow for it. So it's not a matter we have to discuss at all. Let's move on. I agree. Uhuru Kenyatta said same. Let's move on. Nana said it's not an agenda at all on the table. Let's move on.
Said it's not
then someone sits down to say, look, why do you say
then a coalition?
Ow! Pending what coalition?
Anyway, let me move on. Well, that's fine. So you're saying it's
I'm saying
not on the agenda.
Clearly, it's not, and it will never be. For me, when it comes to Kamal Dean, there is no day I would avail myself to engage in debate of homosexuality, to say I'm going to support it, or to say we should be pushed. There's no day.
Very well. Let me move on.
I will not. There's no day I'll ever do that.
Please note it down. I'll come to you for that. Bobby, your response, what do you think of the president's statement? Do you think he failed to be definitive, or that he was looking at the situation considering happenings over time in different parts of the world, and also within the context of how, to some extent, laws evolve or come into being? It is a fact that with some pressure, governments or the state could succumb to certain things and then have certain laws come into being.
I'm going to forgive you before you just move on. Mutala mentioned President Mahama. The response that President Mahama gave, to this matter, it's not different from the response that the
let's not go into back into that argument.
And the president
Bobby's on the phone. Honorable Mutala, please, you're done. Come out, please. Bobby's on the floor now. Bobby, let's hear you. So let's hear from you, and then we'll go further into what the position of the law is as it is. Yes.
Okay. So I should address the president's response before what the position of the law is. I'm trying to tone down my.
Do you think that what the president said amounts to?
I think the president missed a very golden opportunity to let us know what his personal opinion is. You see, when the question was asked first, why is homosexuality still illegal in your country? He went on he paused for about 3 seconds and started talking about the fact that he doesn't think there has arisen yet. He said persons or groups that would influence public opinion.
What does this talk about pausing for 3 seconds?
Come on, please allow him.
Did he or did he not?
Carry on, yes, Bobby.
Talk about? He pausing.
Gentlemen, please, Bobby, allow him. Bobby kept quiet when you were.
Talking to Kamal, not me. Tell Kamal to allow him, not me.
He paused and then said there has not been persons or groups whose activities will influence public opinion. And then the question was asked, would you support such a movement? His first response was, it is bound to happen. That was his first response to that question. Would you, as president, because that was the question, first he addressed it as public opinion. The interviewer shifted it from public opinion to you as a person. Would you support it? His first response was, it is bound to happen. Now, it is bound to happen. Is it that it is bound that he would support it, or it is bound that public opinion will shift? It leaves a lot to discussion. And that is why we are all here, or that is why the social media, this issue has generated. If the president had answered that question the way Kamal Dean, I'm not talking about Uhuru Kenyatta or anybody, the way Kamal Dean had answered it on this table, our discussion would have been different. And that is why I think the president missed the point. Now, yes, the president is a lawyer. Atamios is also a lawyer, or was also a lawyer. The question that was asked him, like I emphasized earlier, shifted from him addressing it as a public issue to his personal opinion. And as we've all agreed on this panel, is for me, homosexuality is not necessarily a legal thing, because if you leave it to only law, it's subject to interpretation, natural canon knowledge. There are lawyers, some very close to the presidency, who after the presidency's interview have come out with their position that it is not illegal. I have read some of them. Very close to the presidency.
And we'll be interrogating
yes.
No, we'll be interrogating it.
Wait,
carry on. Just a minute. Carry on.
He wrote
they have come up, the people close to the presidency have come up to suggest that it is not illegal. Now, if we leave it to only legal, like I said, there will be a lot of interpretations. For me, it is a cultural issue. I don't want to say religious, because religion is a if you say moral, somebody would say it is subject to
you don't want to say moral
a lot of subjective, but it's a cultural issue. And religion, morality may be described as subsets of our cultural issue. Now, Ricky, when you were very straightforward, I'm not to point you, but you were talking about one of the first Ghanaians to have gained international prominence with international work and everything. You see, but for your own values, I want to assume, and you feeling that it's a very sensitive issue, you said you will not mention the name of that person. Yeah. That, and for me, underlined...
Because that is a personal issue. I mean,
somebody's
but Abna, sexuality is a personal thing.
No, let's not take it... No, let us not generalize it. If the man, whoever it is, had married a woman, do you think that he would have felt short of mentioning his name?
But because we obviously know, you kept on talking about the fact that the president paused in his response to the interview, because it's not an easy matter.
Exactly, it is not an easy matter, because our culture does not.
Yes.
I looked at the Mohammedans' ordinance on marriage. I looked at, sorry.
That's what the law
says. The law says Mohammedan. And I'm not a Muslim, so
as way back as 1923.
Yes. So it's not been changed yet.
Exactly.
Maybe there should be a group swearing to change that one too. So I read it very well.
To be led by Honorable.
I read it very well. And I read the marriage ordinance, which is based on the Bible, presumably. And I've read our customary marriage, the 1985 PNDC law. It always mentions man and wife. Man and wife. Now, in the jurisdictions where homosexuality has been legalized, their legal regime uses the word partners, husband and husband, wife and wife. There are agitations now for the parties who choose to marry to decide how they want to describe themselves. But their legal regimes do not use the word man and wife. It uses husband and husband, wife and wife, or partners. That movement that the parties should be given the right to describe themselves has not yet been accepted. So that the man and the man would be able to say, okay, I want to be a wife, I want to be a husband.
That's for them to decide.
Yes. So for me, I'm coming back to the point that it is not necessarily legal. It's because there are some religious personalities who have accepted it. So you'd have Catholic priests who have come out to say they are gays, and they've blessed gay marriages. So if you address it as a religious subject alone, then you fall short, because you have certain persons within religious organizations or sects who have interpreted the Bible or the Quran, have not yet come across a Muslim, but the Christian, a Bible, to say that, okay, God will not be angry with his children, so let us allow it. But for me, it is a cultural issue. There's no way, and we've all said it on this platform, maybe except Ricky, who didn't come out with those straight words, that our culture permits or entertains homosexuality. Because we know that one of the basic principles that govern every community or family is that you must not let your family tree die. So you must procreate. You must give birth. How would you give birth if you decide to marry a woman or marry a man? So our culture will not entertain it. Now, we are discussing it the way we are discussing it because of how the president responded. And like I said, if he had said
categorical,
yes, we would not have come to this point.
Fair,
it doesn't matter whether he would illegalize it or he would not legalize it.
But it wouldn't even take him alone to legalize it or illegalize it. It would take a whole.
But you see, let's get it very well. His responses it's like an invitation to treat. Yeah. It has obviously empowered people. If you see, no.
Please allow Bobby to make a submission.
The president, ex-president John Mahama, launched his book. A certain gentleman appeared at the launch and bought a copy or sat by him or something.
He was invited. He's a prolific writer, and he invited him in that
capacity as it were. But that gentleman turned out to be gay.
Yeah,
it became a whole issue in this country. No, I don't want to politicize it.
His friend, anyway.
Bobby,
but what I'm saying is that I don't have evidence.
Just allow Bobby, please, gentlemen.
Kamaldeen, please. I don't have the evidence that they are friends.
Yes.
The evidence I have is what I'm speaking to. That at the launch of the ex-president,
he was present.
The evidence you choose to
come out, please. Please exercise restraint and let him finish. Because we need to, yes, please carry, allow
the evidence that I have, that I saw, was this gentleman was at the launch. And it became a national discussion to the extent that it had to force the ex-president to come out and say he doesn't support that thing.
Yeah. Clearly.
Because we don't want our president to be associated with fake people who are deemed to be like
that. Listen, gentlemen, Kamaldeen and Honorable Murtala, that man who was at the launch of the ex-president's book really is not at the center of this discussion. So please, let's exercise restraint and let's stick to the issue. So
that is my response to the president's. I think his posture
so moving on, question
was not right.
Fine, that's your opinion. Question is, I'll come back to you definitely. But question is, you talked about the fact that two things, that some people have subsequent to the president's interview, said that it is the act is not illegal, and then also you made reference to the fact that in other jurisdictions where this is legalized, in their laws, reference is made to man and partner or woman and partner. And that brings me home to our laws as currently framed. Now, when you look at Section 104 of the Criminal Offences Code, reading it carefully, you don't see specifics as similar to the man and partner, woman and partner situation in other jurisdictions. Does that tell you something? It talks about if a person has a natural carnal knowledge with a person. So it could be a man having a natural carnal knowledge of another man, or a man having a natural carnal knowledge of a woman.
Yes.
And then the question is, would that, the latter scenario, would that amount to homosexuality as we know it to be?
First, the criminal code was passed in 1963. 1963, where I do not think that at that time this issue of homosexuality.
No, but it was amended in 2002.
But the amendment didn't affect the wording as it is.
It didn't affect the wording.
It didn't affect
that wording
so
has been there in 1963.
It is the law as it is, whether it was passed in 1957 or whatever.
It is what it is. Now, reading the proponents of the fact that it is not very clear and that they think it is not illegal, I disagree with them. And I've read these commentaries by some very well-respected lawyers. I disagree with them. Now, I want to start with their analysis. Their analysis is that if you interpret it as broadly as others have done, what it will mean, and pardon my use of these words, that oral sex is criminal, that if husband and wife decide to have anal intercourse, it is also criminal. Well, I will not belabor the point. Or, you see, Glitcho and Atiso, which has been quoted by them, versus the Republic versus the 2010 Supreme Court of Ghana law report, where the Supreme Court said that unless there is penetration, there cannot be a sexual offense. Now, I don't think that there is penetration when it comes to oral sex. So I do not agree with them citing that as an example. Now,
but that amounts
come on,
to unnatural.
I'm being graphic.
Unless you penetrated
the truth. Forgive me. But you see, as husband and wife, because you see that 104 states with or without consent. Husband and wife with or without consent. Now, in all this discussion, we should know that before any criminal charge comes up, there must be a complainant. In all this discussion, there must be a complainant. And so definitely if the person gave his consent, then it will be difficult for criminal charges to come up. Because the person might not necessarily go and report. That is what I'm trying to say. So if it is husband and wife, and there's anal sex, or it is boyfriend, girlfriend, and there's anal sex, the person who gave his consent is unlikely to go and report. If it is gay or lesbians, and they give their consent and engage in that act, they are unlikely to go and report. So for me, yes, my position is, in the books, as I read it and interpret it, it will make anal sex of whatever form, whether between man and man, man and woman, illegal. Yeah. But if you leave it and say, okay, it is illegal the same way as this, it would lose the cultural aspect of it. That is where I'm coming from.
Yeah, but just a minute. So do you think, moving on, the laws as they currently stand needs
an amendment, and the amendment should be towards. So if somebody says
currently as it is, it's not illegal in its entirety.
No. It is illegal. I'm not saying. You see, the fact that it is not limited to only homosexuality does not make it illegal. The fact that you can extend that agreement to cover both man and wife does not mean that it is right when it's. I mean, I don't want to use the right. It is lawful when it comes to man and man. I agree with their interpretation that anal sex of whatever form is illegal.
Right.
But it doesn't water down the fact that homosexuality is prohibited by our laws. It's the way it is drafted makes it illegal even if it is between husband and wife.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it is not illegal if it's between man and man.
I wanted Bobby to clarify this for us. When Bobby talks about consent, I think Section B of the particular Clause B of the 104 talks about consent, yes. And even the consent with which you did it still criminalizes it by the law and calls it a misdemeanor. However, the first one, where the consent is not actually there with underage person, is where sodomy. You have sodomy, and where it's going to be a first-degree felony, it's going to be treated as a first-degree felony. Now, I still think that even with consent, if there's a complaint to that effect, it's still criminal.
That's what he's saying. That
if there's no complaint,
typically, if somebody consents to it, then the likelihood of that person going to complain, I mean,
but the law says that even if there's consent,
yes, it's criminal.
Then it's still
exactly.
Yes, that's it. But you see, the reason why I'm saying that our cultural aspect has a lot of bearing on it is that if it is husband and wife and they have anal sex, and pardon me, but I have to say it as it is.
Yes, we need to.
It will be very difficult for a nephew or a niece or somebody who sees it to go and report it to the police. Because you see, even if there is consent, it means that both parties have engaged in a criminal act. Either man or wife. If you engage in anal sex, it is a criminal act under Section 104.
Right.
A third party who sees it can go and report. No, I'm being very practical.
I mean,
and if he reports to the police station and is able to provide the evidence, both parties can be punished.
Even though man and wife.
But you see, no person in this country, because of our cultural underpinnings, would go and report husband and wife.
Definitely not.
No, to go and report husband and wife to the police for engaging in anal sex.
It can happen.
Yes, it can happen. But I'm saying that culturally, it will be, yes, unreal for somebody to go and do that. But if somebody sees a man and a man, or a man and a woman, a man and a man and a woman and woman, because of our cultural underpinnings, the people will feel emboldened if they have the evidence to go and report to the police.
But that's why people have said that a strict interpretation of this, the way it is, could lead to discrimination then. Why is it okay to see a man and woman engage in the unnatural carnal knowledge activity and turn a blind eye to it, but then when you see but the person refuses to go complain with the example you were given.
Yes, because we have our cultural values.
Exactly, but the cultural values is influencing the enforcement of that.
Exactly, that is my point.
But it still doesn't take away the fact that there is some level of discrimination.
Yes.
I need to move to Kamaldeen, please. Just a minute. To Kasise.
A challenge was thrown to me that I have not been as dramatic in my statement as I'm choosing that word. I'm saying dramatic. This is my position. And in similar fashion, I, Kasisi, Ricky Pepra.
Do hereby state.
No, do hereby make categorically clear that I have very good friends who are gays. I have a cousin, a lady, who's a lesbian. I abhor their action completely, but I love these people.
Of course.
Yeah.
So you've been categorical?
No, yeah, absolutely.
So you're good. Just a minute. No, please, just a minute. Gentlemen, just a minute. Please, one at a time.
My point has to do with Al Jazeera. And I want to ask a simple question. Doha, Qatar, that is where the headquarters of Al Jazeera is. Will they dare ask them, Qatar, whether they will even ever consider doing this? And you see, sometimes we need to get something very... If you are hungry, doesn't mean that you should be subjected to servitude. And that is what I see happening. That you go to Saudi Arabia, you are talking about money and oil. You don't talk about that. You dare not try it. Yet you think that we are so hungry that you must threaten us with aid and say that you either accept this or not. And I'm saying that the position of African countries, for me, should be resolute. That we should send a signal. We can deal with it, because I've listened to another funny argument that is being made. Why is it that we are condemning it, yet we still want to go to the white man land? We still want to travel to the UK, travel to the United States of America. Absolute nonsense. Don't they also come to us because they need our resources? Must they say because we don't do this, they don't need our resources? Yes, we can still go to them for aid.
You're not in a position to call the shots.
Exactly. No, Abna, it doesn't still matter.
Oh no, Abna, it's just a fact. I'm
kids, let me tell you something. You have kids. Your kids' responsibility, you have a responsibility to take care of them. But it is not everything they want that you provide. Sure. If your child says that, Daddy, I want to hit this TV, this screen, because that pleases me, that makes me happy, will you allow the child to do that? And I'm saying that these are some of the issues. Kamal, you made a statement. The president never said that our culture and values, and I want to state a point.
What did he say?
No, the president said it's bound to happen, but you know why?
He just got up and said,
gentlemen, I think that goes beyond that. Carry on, please. Let's not go back here.
And the fact that the presidency would issue a statement subsequently stating the position of the president tells you that the president himself is realizing that he missed the point. That's the point.
So then when
the fact that a statement was issued.
Come on, just a minute.
No.
Honorable. So when he issued the statement, that categorically stated. So then you know the president.
So Abna, that is why I'm saying that myself and all of us are saying that he missed an opportunity. And Abna, if you observed, I didn't blame the president. I only said that he missed an opportunity. And the fact that a statement was issued subsequently, stating clearly the position of the president on the issue of that. For me, that is why I'm being charitable on this issue, because it would be unfair if you still want to flog the same horse, because subsequently a statement was issued by the presidency, stating that, yes, this is our position, or this is my position. I will not condone it. What we are saying is that he could have done same.
Because on that platform.
Exactly.
Very well. That's fine.
Yes.
They have not.
We all agree that the president's position now and the position of many Ghanaians is that we are against and we abhor homosexuality.
Very
we
well.
all agree.
Very well.
Now, Bobby talks about some lawyers from the Flagstaff House.
No. I didn't say lawyers from the
You said lawyers from
close to the presidency.
Okay, very good. Bobby talks about lawyers close to the presidency. Okay. Writing to say that legally homosexuality is not even a crime.
Intimating strongly.
Is that what you said?
Yes, that is suggested.
Well, I have not seen it. I have not seen it. I have not seen it. But it's mind-boggling when someone says that Section 104, which talks of unnatural carnal knowledge, okay, does not decriminalize. I mean, does not criminalize, homosexuality. Clearly, it does. It's mind-boggling. I'm really surprised. Except to add that, look, maybe the writers or the formulators of the law did not take into consideration woman and woman affair.
Of course, that's why they talk about the fact that it was, yes.
Yeah,
so.
they did not contemplate that. Because clearly when you talk of penetration as an ingredient to establishing the said act, then if, as an ingredient to establish it, now the woman, two women meeting, how do you establish penetration? With what? Do they have penis?
It's okay.
Let's find out. No, I'm being clear on this. So
let him finish.
That is where, on that score, I may legally, second such an argument. Okay. However, when it comes to clearly man-woman affair, whether married or not married, once there is a natural carnal knowledge, of course, it is a crime, clearly, and the law is very emphatic on it. That is what I wanted us to look at.
But Kamaldeen brought in an issue about lesbians and the fact that currently, as the law is couched, it would be difficult to have lesbians fixed under that.
Not really easy.
And you wanted to respond to that.
That is why I refer
quickly, and then I take messages and then we go.
And the Supreme Court did not mince words. That is so. It's not. These are not my words. The Supreme Court said, they said, if there's brassing, those were the words of the Supreme Court judge, then there is no penetration and there's no sexual offense. If you take that position of that ratio in that case, it means that lesbians who are without any form of penetration would not fall foul of it. But you see, our laws also do not only punish when the actus reus has been consummated. Our criminal act punishes inchoate offenses. So,
but 104 is not an inchoate offense. It's
no. So there's a separate provision on the
so then you're moving
offenses.
it from 104.
So,
but if
they are usually read together.
then
so for instance,
usually read together.
Yes, they are usually read together. So inchoate offenses. So if people those who go and complain, because like we said, the two parties generally would consent to it, so they will not go and complain. So if those who go and complain see that these people are engaging in acts which, in their opinion and with the evidence they have, they are either attempting to or conspiring to, because those are the inchoate offenses, it will be read together with Section 104.
So it depends on how you frame your charge or whoever is going to. But otherwise, if you come strictly under 104,
on the charge sheet, if somebody attempts to kill, murder is Section. I'm not too sure to recall it, but they don't charge the person under that section.
46
yes, they don't charge the person under Section 46 alone. They bring the inchoate offense. I think it starts from Section 18 or so.
So yes, I get that part. So you read it together.
Yes, so you read it together. So with lesbians, I see a situation where most of them, if a prosecutor decides to go under this law, would have to read it together.
But defense is
very well. Let me take some messages quickly.
I read online of lesbians in Ghana who have been charged, and I think they were in prison or misdemeanor or something by a circuit court judge. Lesbians.
Sure.
Under this 104 in Ghana.
I have read.
Yeah, there's a precedent.
But
God create you.
Honorable
Why won't you wear this? What's the name?
Honorable Tala, please let me carry on with this messages.
It's the same thing.
Order around the table, please, so I read messages. Now, this one is coming in from Isahako in Tamale. He says, "Good morning, Abna. I think that our president got it wrong in his response to homosexuality on Al Jazeera. While he failed to condemn it outright, his answer is a potential recipe for its legislation. It is therefore unacceptable and must be condemned by all Ghanaians." Good morning, Abna, and your panelists. The 33rd Farmers' Day was beautiful, but the categories and awards must have a second look, especially small-scale farmers. Our president is also putting a lot of weight. I don't get that sentence, unfortunately. That's Edwin in Achimota. Good morning, Abna, and your panelists. Trust me, homosexuality is bound to happen in Ghana. Are you quoting the president? In the coming days, practitioners of this act would hold series of demonstrations for its legalization, knowing it's bound to happen. That's Alale Baba in Pusiga. Good morning, Abna. The president's responses concerning homosexuality was the best because he is a president and Ghanaians want him to be. So if the same Ghanaians demand the legalization of homosexuality, the president can do little. That's Ali Kali Kunate in Sandema. Good morning, Abna. I think what His Excellency President Anado said on you said BBC, but it's Al Jazeera, about homosexuality goes to show that he is a realist. I am told the Commission on Constitutional Amendments set up by the NDC and the white paper issued after it recommended something similar. I don't think that is true. No, that is not. Efo Newton in Kumasi Mankranso says, homosexuality is, okay, these are your words, devilish, ungodly. Even animals from same kingdom will not do that. It's very unfortunate for anybody in their right thinking minds to propose that. And he says the Christian Council must speak now. They have actually spoken. The gentleman, okay. Okay, I'll skip this because this is quite personal. Okay, I think the president was answering the homosexuality question from a legal point of view, and also as president, that is why he was very careful in answering the question, not to infringe. Please let me finish. Not to infringe on his profession and his presidency.
Yes, I can accept it, but
so why are politicians trying to politicize it? We will go for a break at this point. When we come back, we will move on to the other topics lined up for conversation. You're watching and listening to NewDay Saturday Edition. We'll be right back.
Being ignorant, I like that.
Welcome back. This is NewDay Saturday Edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and live around the world online on 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. We're wrapping up on the homosexuality debate here, and then we'll move on. Quickly, I have this question to ask, and again, I'm playing the devil's advocate. On this issue, you always need to state your position, because the next thing you know, you are labeled as, oh, perhaps in this, but yes. The thing is this, we claim to have very traditional or conservative views, if you like, to certain beliefs we have, which we are not ready to compromise on. Yet, we seem to, compromise on certain things. You're looking at the adoption of certain, concepts or values from outside. Now, a quick example on the top of my head, let's look at the media landscape, for instance, the kinds of things we see on TV. Gradually, because of these gay rights movements and all, TV has seen a sort of facelift, if you like, so that there are introductions of gay characters now in every sitcom, for instance, and every, maybe even telenovelas and all of that. We have these shown on television. If we so much abhor, on Ghanaian media, let me just put it that way, not GTV, sorry, on Ghanaian media. If we so much abhor this act we are complaining about, one, why haven't we followed the likes of Uganda, Nigeria, to make our laws as strong as anything? Because currently as it is, it's subject to all sorts of interpretation. That's one. Why haven't we done that? And two, why don't we have the kind of censorship that would clearly make it come across that indeed we don't tolerate this at all? Because the argument constantly is we have a certain cultural value base that we don't want to compromise, yet we seem to be doing the very things that we say we don't, like. Why is that? Kasise?
Look, Ghana has an interesting affair with trying to be nice and trying to remain true to our culture. So that is, we are astride two horses.
Lukewarm.
I wouldn't call it lukewarm. I may call it realist. I may call it gradualist in terms of the way we engage certain issues. Look, we don't want to go back in time and say that we want to lock people up for certain acts, but we cannot, you see, we are afraid if you start censoring, for example, telenovelas which have gay characters in it, where does it stop?
Can we have some order on the table, please? Because he says on the floor.
Yeah, where does it stop? So we need to get real about some of these issues. There was I read on the news, some gentlemen went to Canada or somewhere and were trying to seek asylum because they said they were being persecuted for. They failed. Even though it is illegal in this country, we are still on record not to persecute them. You know, so I think essentially what we need to do again is to realize that while we want to remain as culturally unmolested as possible, we live in a society, we live in a greater society that is changing. That's why I said, and if you don't mind my going behind you, the gentleman says I should remove my smoke before I
okay, so
you know, I need to. The truth of the matter is this. I don't blame him. He probably hasn't got a relative or a very good friend. And normally, I didn't get to know these people as gay before we became friends. You know, I have no apologies about that. And I have more than about 24 smokes. So you can come.
Okay, so just so we make people understand, you know, we know where you're coming from. So there was a message sent in by one of the texters who was asking Kasisi to, before he endorses homosexuality, because his earlier statement, he said there was nothing wrong with what the president had said. So this texter was saying that before he goes on to endorse his homosexuality, whatever, he needs to take off his smock to do that, because he can't do that while wearing a smock. Obviously, this is somebody who has strong beliefs against
I'm not
homosexuality.
sure saying there was nothing wrong with what the president said means he was endorsing homosexuality.
Well, but that's a person. You know, people are so strong in their.
Whatever you do, don't smuggle yourself into my time. This is my time.
So yes, carry on.
The endorsements bid to be clear. So
but the truth of the matter is I've lived in this world longer than probably all the other people on this table. And I know the cultures of this country. I know the cultures
longer than this
I know the cultures of this country.
And nothing but
we're running out of time. Let's get straight to it. Yeah.
This is something I don't have to go far. My grandfather, if my grandfather were around here, and I asked him.
Are you trying to tell us your age?
Oh yes, I'm 49 almost.
Okay, carry on.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm proud of it.
Very well.
And I can contest with this.
Okay, so let's conclude. Let's have
so
your,
the point I'm simply trying to establish here is that people, until they have met, like my good friend's story of the line, until you have met the person and formed an opinion about that person, what am I supposed to do? All of a sudden start hating this person. But even friends are a different matter. But this is my cousin, a young lady. You know, she goes to boarding school, she comes back, her mother thinks that she can whip it out of her. She couldn't whip the quote-unquote demon out of her. She's left home. And now I am one of the few people who's trying to make sure that we establish contact with her, you know. So, yes, Ghana has to remain as close as possible to the very core cultural practices that we have. However, we will need to make allowances for people as we go along. Let me conclude by saying that when Nana says that it is bound to happen, it was only politically imprudent. If he was not president, nobody would have said. Nobody would have taken
that's why we're
issue.
talking about it, because he's president.
I can tell you that it is bound to happen. Just the same way that going forward, when we were in school, they were caning us.
Yes,
they were caning us.
Yes, and now it's no longer.
And I wouldn't today I can't even buy a cane in the privacy of my home to cane my boy.
To buttress the fact that things have changed.
Things have changed.
That's a good point. Kamal, still on this issue, this seeming two double standards, if you like. Again, I think Kasise in his earlier submission mentioned that somebody had mentioned to him that he would have loved Ghanaians to demonstrate this level of passion when we are dealing with corruption issues. Because again, if we claim to be a society of certain values, then we shouldn't encourage
stealing and robbery and cheating and fraud.
Stealing monies that belong to the the very poor people in society, politicians go, the public servants, stealing. Yet we seem to have come to a point where it's okay. We allow it. So again, the double standards. So again, on corruption, we are a struggling economy. We have a budget deficit, struggling to deal with that. We depend so much on aid. Yes, the president has shown a certain posture, which is, or in fact, he's gone on to declare that Ghana beyond aid. Yes, that may be the vision, but the reality is we still depend on that. The Queen of Denmark was here. We are told that Denmark is one of the first countries to have legalized gay rights or homosexuality. So, I mean, if you ask me, within the foreign space, she didn't come here to just drink tea. There's perhaps an agenda. You never know. How within, I'm just saying, but how within the concept, or within, I mean, the context of things happening around the world and the fact that it has implications on policy internally, we can't turn a blind eye to these things that are happening. How do we deal?
Well, clearly the visit by the Queen of Denmark, I'm not sure what they put on the table included discussions pertaining to homosexuality.
Not sure.
I'm not sure. I mean, what actually came out?
Usually they don't put it on
clearly,
the agenda.
No. Why? In Kenya, we saw Obama being clear on it. That this was why I was here. It was one of the reasons.
No. Obama did not.
Gentlemen, let's again.
That was Kenyatta respond to him
to serve as an example. No. Let it not derail.
And again, you cited Cameron. Cameron had this as a policy.
He declared it openly. Yes, Cameron.
So I'm saying that I'm not too sure, because we are all going to speak to the speculation. Okay, if you say that the Queen who came here had issues to discuss with our president.
See, the thing about the Queen of Denmark is coming in against the backdrop of the fact that we still depend on aid.
Very well.
So it's not to say that, you know.
Very well.
And again, the fact that in previous times we've had Cameron, Hillary Clinton try to tie aid to gay rights.
Very good. But this wasn't the case regarding the visit of the Queen.
We don't know that for sure, like you said.
Now, what are we supposed to do as a people to make our position firm, to stand on where we actually belong to when it comes to matters relating or regarding gay rights and all that? Clearly, if we anticipate a future pressure to push for the rights of the gay, equally, we can or we may anticipate future pressure strengthening our position against gays. So fine, if there's going to be opportunity for somebody to push for it, equally there's an opportunity for others to say we'll resist it and stand firm.
So it depends on who is stronger.
Absolutely. And I'm saying, where are we now? We have a position where we're all against it, and we all say it's not proper. Now, however, when you look at what Bobby churned out, regarding what the law says, to the extent that he mentioned inchoate, offenses, talking about some precedences, some cases that you could cite to, in the form of defense and all that. We could go beyond that. If we have a Speaker of Parliament today who says gayism is not in our books and will not be supported, he's a senior legislator. Okay, senior lawyer. He makes a point. We have other legislators who say no, we are against it. We have the clergy who says no, we are against it. We have some politicians like Kamal Dean and Mutala and the rest who say we are against it. Equally, there's some seeming pressure telling us that, look, we could come out with laws, or we could come out with modalities, if you like, that would be binding on all of us to say that this is abhorred and that is abhorred and is finito.
So as it is now, that coalition is not strong enough.
Now you talk about the media. No, you see, of course, for what we have, if you are only relying on section 104, chapter 6 of our criminal code, for me, it's not too strong enough. If I'm only going to rely on that one alone, for me, the subjective law is not too strong enough. Now, talk about the media and the kind of content that they bring out to us. And some content includes, acts of gayism, acts of homosexuality and all that. Now, we have a future to raise. We have the young ones to raise. We are afraid of, this matter spreading in the near future. I remember not too long ago.
So why are we accepting of those?
I remember not too long ago, there were attempts. You see, when you take Article 162 of the Constitution of Ghana, clearly which tells you about the freedom of press and all that, you realize that you cannot at a point seek to censor the media or gag the media constitutionally.
But this is let's interrogate that some more. Yes. That's an interesting point. Yes. You cannot, yes, but then, so you're saying, irrespective of this so-called cultural or traditional values, we hold strongly to that, but let's allow the media to infiltrate the system. That is okay. Again, the double standards.
Again, it's not double standard. Again, let me be clear on this. Clearly, we have Article 11, which gives you all the laws, like Mutala said. okay, including the customary laws, which is also upheld. However, we have the mother law. The mother law is the constitution. Now, the mother law says, Article 162 says you cannot censor or you cannot, as it were, try to gag.
But you have
now,
principles and values you're protecting.
My point here is that now we have other bodies, okay, the National Media Commission, for instance. At a point, they came out to say that, look, content law should have been introduced so that at least we could look at what things that come on our media to, I mean, at what time, at what peak time and all that, so that we at least will shape in what we come out. I mean, they have peak times on the media and all that. Now, point is, if the content law proposal was shut down by media practitioners, clearly and outrightly, what are we then going to do? So clearly what we can do is that we have a window of hope. Use our legislative arm of governance. If we have a Speaker of Parliament who is so solid on it, we have other people who advocate against it, why can't we push?
Okay.
We can push to get our
Honourable, same question to wrap up here. Why aren't we seeing more rigorous laws? And when it comes to the media landscape, for instance, the censorship issues, why do we seem to be allowing these things to fester, further corrupting the minds, little minds?
I think that we'll be begging the question if you want to argue that, okay, because Ghanaians are so passionate about this homosexuality and therefore we should, you know, demonstrate equal, you know, passion when it comes to corruption. That's a very fair, you know, call that we should be equally passionate. I believe that Ghanaians have been very passionate about the issues of corruption too. Now you can even extend it to beyond corruption as even this discussion, you know, moves on. We're talking about censorship in the media, responsibilities, you know, adhering to the ethics of profession. That notwithstanding, Abena, we have a responsibility, and I agree with Kamal, but I think that my understanding is that the murder law is even the law of God. Now, if you take our constitution recognizes God. Anybody who is sworn into office, at the end of the day, you end up by saying, so help me God.
It does.
Is it the homosexual God you are talking about? Please, you are talking about God. And that God tells you, it means that, it means that the God you recognize either as a Christian or a Muslim or even a traditionalist. When you go to the traditionalist, let me just use, let's say, Dagbang, which I understand properly. When they do, they call it Bemmalma. Bemmalma means they do their things. At the end of the day, they say God. They have a deity, they do everything to the deity, but they end up saying what? God. Now, you have this. God created Adam and Eve. God could have created Adam and Steve. He didn't do that. He created Adam and Eve. And God has given, please, in fact, this is a very serious matter. And God has given specific issues. If you take the scripture, they say kill them. That's what the scripture says. But under our law says no, you cannot just kill. If there are laws punitive enough that will deal with people who engage in it, it doesn't mean that you are disregarding what the scripture says. But you are just being real under the prevailing circumstances that you may not want to do that entirely. So Abena, let's get something very clearly. If the leadership, it takes the political will to allow some of these things to happen. Now, if the leadership gives tacit approval, and I say tacit approval because you need to be very firm on some of those things. And the reason why I think that it would be unfair to continuously bastardizing the president over the statement is because subsequently the statement was issued. So once the statement was issued, what I expect from Kamal and the MPP communicators is that they shouldn't be defensive. No, they shouldn't be defensive. What they needed to do is to humbly admit that yes, the president was not being clear enough. The president could have stated, please, no.
Come on.
Why is it that anytime I thought the president speaks, someone must come and explain what he meant? Please, the president was emphatic. It is bound to happen.
And I'm saying that, please, carry on, yes.
Kamal, if you didn't tell him, I won't belabor it, Abena. So tell Kamal. So I'm saying that what you need to do is to admit that, look, yes, the president could have been very clear. This is a family man. He has wife, he has kids. He certainly wouldn't be engaged in such a thing. I'm yet to find a gay or a lesbian who have kids, except that they adopt those kids. But he's a family man who has kids, and those kids were born through the natural means. And I'm saying that the fact that subsequent statement was issued tells you that upon a hindsight, the president, maybe I wasn't clear enough. And let me state my position.
So he made that statement subsequently.
I am saying that there should be a legislature. And I think that some people must make a move. I was just having a discussion with my colleague. that look, even private citizens who can make a move to make this thing very clear.
Mount pressure.
In fact, if you are talking of mounting pressure, you are saying that people should mount pressure for the president.
Pressure for tougher laws. For tougher laws is what I'm saying.
You can also mount pressure for it to be bound to happen.
No.
I'm saying that yes,
mount
we can.
Pressure for tougher laws.
It's not about mounting. It's not about mounting pressure. Kamaldeen, why? It's not about mounting pressure. It's not about mounting pressure, but it's about going through the legislative processes to ensure that this thing. And you reminded me, the position taken by the Speaker of Parliament was palpably clear that this is something that we will not countenance under any circumstance. But let's also get something very clear. Now, when we want to overflow human rights, because when they come, they won't tell you that we are coming to tell you that, okay, do this. But they come and have economic discussions with you. They will discuss issues about aid, but they will tell you that, you see, the rights of everybody must be protected, including LGBTs. That's how they'll go by it, including LGBTs. You know, the LGBTs, they will subtly push it. So you begin to say that, okay, you see, let's protect the rights of people. I don't agree mob justice, that those who are engaged in it should be killed as we have witnessed. That's not what I don't agree with it. But I'm saying that this is a position that we must condemn. And in concluding with the statement I made from the scripture of the Quran, that Allah will specifically send punishment as the angels told Prophet Abraham, that he sent them specifically with stones of fire. And the names of every single individual was written on each stone. Specifically.
Stones are targets.
Exactly, targets. This one goes to Kamal. This one goes to Kofi. I'm giving an example. and says that if people fail to speak out,
and the biggest one goes to Mutala.
And it won't just go to those who are engaged in it, but those who connive or condone or who indeed behave like.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Thank you. Now, Bobby,
wrapping up on that. Manager.
But also, let me touch on this. I think somebody just whispered into my ear. You know, prisoners and the conjugal rights of prisoners, whether they have it or not, and how that leads to, you know, because they are humans. They are in there, and you need to, their needs and all of that. So there's a certain environment that perhaps facilitates these kinds of acts. Speak to that briefly and then wrap up for us.
No, that argument is...
So what do we do to
No. If you say that prisoners have needs...
And conjugal rights.
In other words, you're saying the fact that we are keeping them away from their liberties, that should also cease.
Then we will be laying the foundation to justify why single-sex boarding schools, when these things happen, because adolescents aged from 13 to 18 or as it were, is the peak period. In fact,
but schools have exits, they have leave. Assuming they were even in that age to at the age
the prison setting to justify. The prison setting cannot even be a basis for it. I would move to, for me, it's neither here nor there to say prisoners have, and that is the environment.
They cannot have.
Let me be very honest with you. Let me be very honest with you. If it's not everybody who go, I went to a boarding house at this other college. And Infantipim or every boarding school, boys' school, and we had rumors of girls' schools too. Every year group, there are people who will be accused of being lesbians. They do not make, if you take a year group of about 500 students, you will not have more than 10 of being accused like that.
So, insignificant number.
Yes. So what I mean to say is that we can't blame it on an environment.
We're not saying we are blaming. What I'm saying is there's that perception that you know, the behavior or practice, I mean, can emerge from there and further, you know.
So when they come out of prison, then they would want to...
Not that it's... But it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Yes. There's a lot of accusations allegations of prisoners, young prisoners who are being sodomized in prison. And when they come out, they are used to that system and they practice it. We cannot... Yes, it's something that I do not intend to wash away.
Sure.
Yes, but...
So that's what it is. So I'm not saying...
Yes. I do not intend to wash away. But what I'm saying is that it's in the same way as that argument would also hold water when you talk about secondary school education. That if you use that argument, then it will also hold water in that context. But back to your main point about our double standard attitude. I do not think that we have a double standard attitude when we talk about things that are ills of the society. You see,
in one breath you talk about them, but you don't talk about them in
yes,
other instances.
Isn't
that double
ill
standard?
that you can think about, majority of which being corruption. Nobody on this table condones corruption.
Yeah, but it's not about the people around here. But what are we doing as a state?
No, that is why they passed the special prosecutors bill.
But we've talked about it several times here.
I'm saying that it is not as if the right thing, I don't want to use the word right thinking to insult the insensibilities of people. But what I'm saying is that the right, every person who upholds,
please,
any person who upholds these social issues or cultural issues will speak against corruption, will speak against homosexuality, as it were, will speak against every other ill in the society. Nobody will own up and say that I am corrupt. In this our country, you will not find any person, a civil servant, public servant, politician, any person saying proudly that I am corrupt. Because the person knows it is something that our society abhors.
Fine, but what is done to deter people?
There are laws.
There are laws, but do we enforce them sufficiently?
The same law that abhors, that criminalizes homosexuality.
Very well. We need to take a break. We need to take a break. We'll take a break. When we come back, you will have that opportunity.
I beg you.
We need to take a break, please. When we come back, we'll finish up. Yes. So we're taking a break. You're watching NewDay Saturday Edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is NewDay Saturday Edition, live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and across the world on 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. We are wrapping up on the conversation about homosexuality. I think we've done that for 2 hours. We'll be wrapping up soon and then move on to look at the migrant crisis in Libya, where we have human beings being auctioned for sale as you would commodities and regular goods. Let me take some messages and then we come to that. This one is coming in from Clement. He says, good morning, panelists. Homosexuality in Ghana is absolutely not good for us. Please advise the president not to impose it on us because it will affect our cultural values. Today, I must admit, Murtala has hit the point. I have never been his fan. I believe he should forget this NDC NPP matter and be a clergyman.
This Kamal incarnate.
I love his submission on this matter better than the president did at Al Jazeera. So there you go. Good morning, TV3. If homosexuality is illegal, then all so-called association members of gays and lesbians must be arrested. Our culture frowns on it and it's illegal, period. My name is Asianga Edward from Bolga. This homosexuality should be discouraged. If not, then it will extend to brother-sister marriage. Musa Abatwa Kumasa says, now, why did President Akufo-Addo fail to make a categorical statement that homosexuality is uncultured? Therefore, we won't tolerate that inhumane act in Ghana. In the Western world, our polygamy has been made illegal, yet they want us to legalize homosexuality, which has always been wrong. If I take food and put it in my ears, what will you think? Okay, thank you for your message. Hi Abna, how are you doing? Those who are trying to decorate President Akufo-Addo's stand on homosexuality are not doing him any good. We should not condemn the president's all condemn the president's bound to happen statement. God bless Ghana. SB Ajapon. Homosexual in Ghana is not the best act to practice. Please let's help to stop it. Let me take the last one here and then we go. Helen from Accra says, good morning. On the homosexuality issue, we all heard the president when he said it's bound to happen, meaning he's sure it will happen in future. And the future can just be the next 5 minutes after his interview. He even said the advocates are not pushing hard, meaning he's telling them what the homosexuals should be doing to gain grounds in Ghana. That's your interpretation. Thank you for your messages. We'll be moving on now to look at the Libyan situation. Serious matter.
Yeah.
It's in two folds. You have the global situation, and then of course how it affects Ghana, but obviously intricately connected. So we'll start off with the local situation. And I mean, for me, I'll just go straight out to address the issue that I have a problem with, which is that I think the people asking questions, why are these people even going there, given, I mean, you know what will happen there, yet you go there. And for me, I think we need to situate the discussion within the appropriate context, which is, yes, people travel these dangerous journeys and all for reasons. And we can't turn a blind eye to these. Economic hardships, yes. And within a certain context, we do know that people from Ghana have succeeded through these routes and have come back home to turn around the fortunes of their families. And so there's that basis for other people to say, okay, then I also have to go and come back and perhaps turn my family's fortunes around. So indeed, for me, I think it's not about why are they going, because that we know. But how do we get them discouraged to go? How do we get them to stay? I'll start with the Honorable Mutala. How do we look at this situation? Essentially, that is what it is. How do we discourage people from going?
Well, Abna, let me say that it's a bad spectre. There is no question in anybody's mind that a lot of young people lost their lives, as a result of engaging in that perilous journey. Others too have gone, and their family do not know whether they are alive or they are not alive. People do not know. There are, if you like, remote and immediate causes why people would want to embark on that. I don't think there is any place, that is sweeter and nicer than home. And I believe that every single individual would have loved to remain in his country and perhaps make it in his country. But like you said, several factors, there's a pull and push factors. Right. Now, if you look at what is happening, it isn't that it has never happened, but the level at which it is happening now has reached a stage that it has indeed attracted the international attention. Many people do not know that several years ago, the Europeans were also exodusing from Europe to what? To Africa, particularly during the Second World War. You had a lot of Europeans who moved to places like Algeria.
The Christian Bomb Castle was built by the Europeans.
Now, I'm not even talking about colonial time, I'm just talking about they themselves. As a result
emphasizing the push and pull.
Yes,
what
push
would
and
cause
pull.
You to leave?
Yes, as a result of instability, as a result of insecurity, as a result of hunger, you had Europeans who were exodusing, if you like, from Europe to North Africa, particularly. Many of them moved to Morocco, many of them moved to Algeria and other places. So that is there. So it is not as if this is the first time we haven't that. Now, if you ask an average young man why he would want to engage in such, the simple explanation or reason they will give is that economic circumstances. You cannot, many of them still do not know, even in Europe. Yes, they also go through such difficult and challenging economic circumstances. I'm not saying that going abroad is not good. Let me not be misconstrued. There are many people who have gone there and who have actually made it.
And the country
as a matter of fact, in this country, remittances is one of our major source of revenue that we get. That's still notwithstanding. Should we juxtapose the monies that individuals will make with their lives? I think that we would say that, look, we know that you can go there and then you make money, or you may make money, but the possibility of you also engaging in such dangerous voyage can also lead to you losing your life. Now, if you have people who would go abroad through the normal way, it is not even, perhaps it's bound to happen. It is not even, automatic that once they go, they'll be able to make it. But I'll tell you a story. Sometime last 3 years, we were having an expo in Milan. So I used to go to Milan very often because I was the Commissioner General for the expo. And I used to go to Milan Central. If you know Milan very well, where do you have their trains? And I was shocked. You go there, you find a lot of Africans. There was a day I got there, and there was this Turkish restaurant I wanted to eat. I went there, and I heard people speaking Twi. Naturally, I had to go to them, because clearly, I didn't know who those people were. But the moment they speak a language, I'm not an Akan, but I felt part and parcel of them. I had to go to them, and I had interactions with them. So what happened was that I took them to the restaurant, I bought them food. So anytime at all I came from the expo, and there was a train straight from the expo, which was in the outskirts of Milan, to Milan Center. So anytime I came there, I would definitely have to look for them. One day I asked them where they were sleeping. They said they were just sleeping out there. And as they said, oh, they were promised. Some of them told me they paid as much as $10,000. $10,000 to be able to come. Even those who go through that deadly thing, they pay money. They pay huge sums of money to be able to come. Now, let's talk about Libya. I know Libya very, very well. When I was the Secretary General of the All Africa Students Union, because one of our offices was in Libya, so I used to go to Libya very often. And I met Gaddafi at least. I had the privileged opportunity to have met him not less than 8 times. Now, what happened in Libya? That is one thing many people do not know. About 30% of Libyans are people with dark skin. About 30. When the Libya crisis started, I said it on radio. I said that I suspected there was going to be troubles in some African countries, particularly Chad and Mali. Because I knew that a lot of the security forces of Gaddafi at that time were not Libyans. These were Chadians, and some of them were Malians. Some were even as far as Burkina Faso. These were the people who constituted his security. So when they toppled Gaddafi's administration, the question I asked myself was, where will these people go to? Because they certainly wouldn't be countenanced. And what they did, what the Arabs did at that time, was that they were attacking even black people, whether you were Libyan or you were not, once you had a black skin. Because presumably, Gaddafi had blacks who were members of his security, and indeed who actually fought and also participated in it. So there is that inbuilt hatred for black African migrants. And it is explanatory. Why that hatred? It has to do with the long-standing hatred they had with Gaddafi over the way he handled. At a point, Gaddafi lost trust in the Arab Union. So his focus was on Africa. So you'd realize that he was investing a lot of money on Africa. In fact, that time if you went to Tripoli at that time, you would find Nkrumah was like, quote and unquote, a small god. Everything they did, they were talking about Nkrumah. All those Pan-Africanists, they were talking about them. So that also explained. Now, what we need to do also to look at the challenges we have. Now, if people are saying that they cannot live in Ghana or live in African countries because of economic challenges, what are we then doing within home? Creating opportunities. As a planner by profession, I think that we need to be focusing on growth poles.
Planting for food and jobs.
I'm coming. Planting for food and jobs, we'll talk about it, and I'll tell you some of the challenges. You see, we need to talk about providing, come on, I mean, this is an intellectual exercise, honestly. It's a serious business. Yeah. We need to talk about the growth poles. In Parliament, I made a statement against LIP. I was virtually verbally linked. I had people in my constituency who were benefiting from LIP. Livelihood empowerment against poverty? Okay. That is a policy that ought not to have been even implemented. Tell me one single country where we reduce poverty by doling out money to people. You know, the justification is that you are giving the money to the aged, people who cannot work. Now, if you want to talk about it intellectually, people will begin to bring emotions in here. And if you don't take time, you'll be isolated as someone who is against poor people and aged people. Now, if you go to the communities that are benefiting this, they are giving it to household. It has created social and cultural divisions. Go to northern Ghana, for instance, and Kamal and my brother, we all do know how communities live. You have a father who has about 3 or 4 kids. They've all grown, they have their wives and their families. They live in the same compound. So they individually are what? Household. Now they get to a household, the selection is not even properly done. They get 1 person or 2 people from the household. They benefit. Now you have the old man who cannot work and whose interest you are giving this, you know how much? 50, 60 Ghana cedis. Yeah, that's right. Now that man takes the money. The man has about 3 of his able young grandchildren who don't have jobs. So the man takes the 60 or even 80 Ghana cedis. Now that 80 Ghana cedis won't suffice the man, let alone the three grandchildren of his. What? And if you look at the amount of money, I served in the finance committee, the amount of money the government spends every year in every district, that is huge. So what government needs to do, use that money, provide job opportunities in those areas. So the aged man who has 3 of his grandchildren, at least 2 of them or 1 of them can get a job, earn a decent salary, can take care of the grandfather, and perhaps support the other siblings. These are some of the issues. Now, people made references to Brazil. Lula da Silva didn't dole out money to people. Tell me one single country in the world where you have been able to reduce poverty by doling out money to people. Use that money to create the needed opportunities for people to get jobs. So policy intervention is very, very important if you want to stem this. You don't give people fish, you teach them to fish. It's essentially, it's the import of what you're saying here. So we'll move on. Creating opportunities, that's fine. But to Kamal, we are confronted by this situation. This week we heard that about 127 Ghanaians have been evacuated back home.
what is the government's strategy moving forward to ensure that all Ghanaians caught up in this are brought home? Indeed, I think there was a statement to the effect that there's no mission in Ghana mission in there, so the numbers we're not even sure of, because we were told that no Ghanaian has been sold as of yet. But that figure or that statement in itself is not conclusive, because we don't necessarily, we can't verify that because we don't have any mission there and all of that. So how is government, you know, moving forward, how is government working to ensure
First of all,
the interest of
on this matter,
Ghanaians there are upheld?
Let me give some credit to CNN and to IOM, International
Organization for Migration.
But for their reports out there, we would not have even known that our citizens are suffering in Libya and some other African citizens. You know, I think we should, going forward, find a way, and I want to associate myself to the comments of Mutala when he says that, look, as a country, or if you like, as a continent, okay, belonging to some regional bodies, what are we doing to get our economies at least looking better or appearing better, so that someone will not move away from his country just in search for greener pastures, which does not even exist where he's going? This Libya thing we're talking about, I think we should blame ourselves as Africans. First of all, I read a piece about Gaddafi, which talks about, before his demise, what he said. Says, look, this was a desert I've turned into forest. This was a place where accommodation was so difficult. Today, there are even excess, houses meant for citizens of Libya. This is where tax was very low. This is where fuel I've made available to many citizens of Libya. But I'm being killed for all this. I'm prepared to die as a Libyan rather than going on exile. When I read it, I nearly wept. I was like, wow, heroes are indeed, glorified after their death. African leaders, it's about time we realize that the AU that we belong to, the ECOWAS that we belong to, name the sub-bodies, the sub-regional bodies that we have in Africa, that we all belong to. It is about our welfare. It is about our forward march as a people. It's not just about me being a president or you being in authority. No, that is not what it means. And how can we get them or push them to work as citizens? Once again, pressure. Ghana in perspective. Taking Ghana and looking at Ghana. The youth of this country, we must push any government in power to ensure that measures or policies are put in place to inure to the benefit of the youth, and ensuring them of, or assuring them of, a brighter future, if you like. Now, if we don't do this, then we sit back. We have not solved the problem at all. Unemployment is so high at any given time. People complete universities and sit home and they never get job. Look, I tell you, sometimes I wonder if I am the labor officer of this country. If you see the text messages that comes to you, and your party is in power and therefore get me a job, you'll be amazed. And I'm sure I'm not the only person.
Because you promised
maybe
them jobs.
No, of course, yes, why not? It was part of our agenda. And even our manifesto spelled out that. We said, so I don't begrudge them at all. But I'm saying that we need to come out with such policies. And like Mutala said, it is not a matter we should joke with at all. It's a serious matter. Look, if you're talking about revamping the agri sector, so be it. We must do it. It shouldn't be rhetorics. We shouldn't come talking and say...
shouldn't be opportunities given to party faithfuls.
Absolutely. No, it shouldn't be so. We're talking the youth of this country. One that is
all-encompassing. Exactly.
If we are talking about ensuring that production is supposed to be seen as a hallmark in terms of building our economy, let the industrialization drive be seen. Now, if we don't see this, we're going to have problems. But I can tell you, the President of the Republic, this is not supposed to be too political, but the President of the Republic is committed to ensuring that indeed these problems are addressed. Otherwise, we're not going to nip this in the bud.
Very well.
The last we have as young ones to travel to, if you like, developed countries or Europe and other places. I mean, that last is something attitudinal problem can solve. I mean, attitudinal, approach can solve. Now, if you have a parent who says, look, let me give my child a better education, let me give opportunity for my child to know that where you belong, you have riches here, you have wealth here, and you can create the wealth for yourself.
That is, that parent has those opportunities.
Those responsibilities. But you see, once again, it all boils down to the leadership that we give to the people.
Exactly.
So clearly, I think that by our approach, attitudinal approach to some of these things, we can solve it. If the clergy comes out to be able to talk to the people and let them understand that, look, you didn't get a vision that someone was in Canada. You had a vision that someone was in Ghana. You understand? You had a vision that, look, the clergy is not that contribution. Somebody tells you, I had a vision you'll be in Canada, and a man will come from Canada and marry you. And someone is struggling looking for money to go to Canada.
And why people are so gullible to those things is because of the
I've never heard a clergyman say he had a vision you were in Togo. I've never heard a clergyman say I had a vision you were in Burkina Faso, therefore struggle to go to Burkina Faso. This is our land and this is where we belong. We should try to make it better. Look, we have all the resources. Take Ghana in perspective. You have everything you can talk about. And yet, policies are not there to help us push home some of these things that we want. But I think that's the way it is. We should try to work on.
You raised an issue in your submission about the sub-regional bodies, the continental bodies, AU and all of that. And I want us to touch on that. And Kasise, I will ask you to take us on that. As this was happening this week, there was the Africa-European Union summit that was also happening. And the focus had to obviously move to this crisis that we witnessed. And the reports have it that there's a task force that has been set up to obviously look into it. It's going to work in close collaboration with the Libyan government. The goal is to save and protect lives of migrants and all of that. But the question then is, yes, this is a collaboration, but as a continental body, AU, shouldn't AU be seen at the driving seat, taking action? In fact, perhaps should have even intervened a long time ago before this. So looking at AU as a continental body and such a situation happening in not any other state, but Gaddafi's Libya. We know how Gaddafi supported AU. And for this to have festered all this while, what is the AU doing? I mean, if you ask me, I know the AU has its challenges, and whether or not it's relevant is another conversation to be had some other time. But how should the AU be dealing with the situation?
Abner, the question is so multifaceted.
I
don't
know
where to begin. But one,
it is.
Yeah. No.
The issue itself is.
Let me try.
So multifaceted. Yes.
One, our politicians have to blame for the lack of progress that is made the youth have to resort to these things. Quickly, in Bolga, there's tomato factory. Last 2 years, John Mahama was cutting a sword for a tomato factory somewhere in Tema.
Last 2
years
years.
or so, yeah. In Tema. I found that mind-boggling. Let me borrow a word. When there's Kwalgu tomato factory sitting there, it's never worked since I was on.
Person,
but it was a tomato factory.
Okay,
no, the private person,
let's not.
Government cannot.
That's fine. So he did.
Was it private?
Carry on.
No.
Tema one. Okay, fine. Yeah, but in fact, if that is the case, I was expecting that the president, through you people,
yes.
Okay, so the point is well made.
Yes. Then we have the meat factory.
Yes.
We have the meat factory. Then we have the ginnery, which was in Tumu, which has died and gone. We have the Nasia rice farms. I'm talking about my neck of the wood. You know.
And let me add, Commander Factory was to have been resuscitated.
Yes.
And
so
I think Mutala was on the show sometime and brought some sugar.
If we sit down and lament our lack of progress, as though it happened to us, when we have consciously. Now the MPP has come in and they are saying one district, one factory.
They are doing.
No, excuse me, I know the words I want to use.
Please,
and I'm saying that at one point, I got the impression that this was going to be a recycle of state-owned enterprises, but quickly I was told that the private sector was going to be encouraged to...
Honorable Mutala, please, your interjections.
Please
go.
I'll lose my train of thought.
Yes,
so,
carry on.
essentially, until politicians stop feeding themselves and please don't misquote me, stop feeding themselves silly. I'm not saying they are silly. Until they don't inflict 110 ministers in this country. I mean, please. I'm sick. I'm sick of what is going on in this country. I'm sick of the fact that, whether it's true or not, there's a report that about 40, 50, 60 people go to the United Nations for the General Assembly meeting. It is not just MPP. It happened under the NDC as well.
I'm not even opening this conversation for.
I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the waste. The waste. We are too greedy. The politicians, we are too greedy. You are a member of parliament, Lanton. You have maybe 4 or 5 Land Cruisers, and
I don't have 5.
Are you still the member of parliament? He's not talking about you.
Please. I don't want to be part of this.
Please, let Kasise.
That's a good example.
Speak.
Hold on. Or for example, you and Kamal, you and I used to be wearing. We used to wear the same shirt. Now we can't wear the same shirt. You know. So
I don't know about that.
We used to wear the same shirt. Now it's I'll be swimming in it. So the point I'm simply trying to say is that these young men and women who are forced to go to Libya, we have chased them away, and we should all bow down our heads in shame. And the politicians are more to blame than those of us who do not have the means to affect policy. No, but I mean, how can you look at a young man who has finished university or JSS? He has no job. He wants to do galamsey. You say, okay, galamsey is a crime. There's no job. I don't know. Maybe some of you do not know how dire it is. When you go to my village, when the rains fall and we try to harvest, and the little we harvest, there is nothing else to do. Yeah. Then sometimes they'll have to come down south and maybe work on the cocoa farms, which are also seeing a decline, and galamsey is faster money. Then you say that it's, you know, or they are picking up diseases left, right, and center. But the AU is an embarrassment. No. I say that the AU is an embarrassment because, yes, they don't have a standing army. Ghana Army, for example, is celebrated for its exploits in peacekeeping. And we can't get 20 soldiers from here and go to Togo and get 20 soldiers.
To Libya.
To go to Libya.
Excuse me.
Is that what you suggesting?
Can I finish?
Let him
yes. What is the import of having standing armies with criminally high budgets when we cannot intervene? I'm not saying go and fight a war, but you are in Lebanon, you were in Polisario Front, was the one here? Western Sahara. We went to Liberia. Libya has got 2 feuding governments. We don't know even know who is who.
The Benghazi or now NTC.
3, yeah.
And are you telling me so outlandish to suggest that we can send a military presence and even go and be on the border?
No,
hold on.
You can't do that, and I'll tell you.
I know the sovereignty things, my brother. I know
with AU and Africa. You could
please
do
let
what
Kasise wrap up on his submission.
Okay, let us keep on talking the law, and they'll be selling our brothers and children like fowls.
No, he could do what he's suggesting.
Can I finish?
Let him Kasise go.
One morning, I think 2 or 3 days ago, about 7 people kept sending me the same videos. And finally, I just sent one particular guy. I just said, please, I have had enough. I mean, I used to think I was all man. But here am I looking at the video and I'm crying in my room. I'm like, what? Are we human beings? So I don't care about the legalistic limitations of what have you. If I were the president of this country, with all those supposed rangers that we have.
No, but it's not
okay.
simple.
Look, so,
my brother, I'm not saying
we will need to take a break.
We
will need to take our last break.
Yes,
quickly, so please wrap up.
I am just saying that we have managed to mismanage the countries. And by that we have sent them out. Then they have been, as for the Arab problem with black people, is 700, 800 years old.
Very well.
Long time. It has nothing to it's not just limited to Gaddafi.
It's not, yes, but
Arab black problem.
We're trying to.
About Libya specific problem.
We'll take a break at this point. When we come back, we'll have Bobby's perspective on this issue and then interrogate what Kasise just left us with, which is the intervention he's proposing. We'll see you shortly after the break. You're watching NewDay, Saturday Edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching NewDay Saturday edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and online around the world on 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. Just before the break, we touched on the migrant situation in Libya, where we have human beings being auctioned for as little as $400. I will move quickly to Bobby for his perspective on. Let me move on to Bobby, because he said I had you wrap up. So, Bobby, let me have your perspective on this situation.
I would not. I don't have anything useful to add when it comes to what my senior brothers have said as to the cost, the push and pull factors.
Right.
My perspective is on what is currently being done to the people who have come in. Now, you see, when I watched, it was on TV3, your report
on the
returnees at the airport. Cars were lined up. So as soon as they came in, they give you something there. I don't know what it was. Takeaway pack. Then you go straight into a bus, and they will take you
400 Ghana cedis.
400 Ghana cedi, and it will take you to Circle, and you find your way to wherever you are supposed to go. For me, it's a very dangerous thing. It's a very dangerous thing, and this is why I'm saying it. This thought came to mind when one of them showed marks on his back that he's been cut with cutlasses. Some of these people may be coming with health issues.
He doesn't even fear a gun anymore.
The health issues, which is a very good point.
There are two, yes. Some of them may be coming with health issues. My advice is that
mental health, you mean?
No,
either way, physical, mental, whichever.
With a blade.
They should give him some counseling.
The ministry, irresponsible, I don't know if a special committee will be set up, should rather have maybe a 3-day camp or something somewhere. Debriefing camp, as it were. Screen all of them. Get a data of all of them where you are going to. Because they could either end up being easily lured into crime, because how many days will 400 cedis last them?
Absolutely.
Or they would come up with diseases that they will end up spreading in the community. Because we did not screen any of them. The ones that I watched on TV3 did not screen any of them. They just come back, you write your name, they give you an envelope and a pack. I don't know what was in it, but take away pack and an envelope. And the buses were there. You go and sit in the bus and you go straight to Circle. And that's it. That is not enough. If we don't take care, in a year's time, most of these people will end up being armed robbers, petty thieves, or would have diseases that they will infiltrate the environment.
So you're raising the issue about the integration of these people
how
into
are
society.
They being integrated?
It's a very important issue.
It's a very dangerous thing. Now we have 127 who came 3 days ago or so. Those who are coming, I think the ministry should take it up. Whether a ministry for social welfare, there's gender and social welfare, she should take it up. Set up a 3-day camp for each group minimum that comes. Would have psychologists, would have health officials who screen them and then do these things. I did not hear of any program like that for them.
What's refreshing is that after the report, maybe that was what you had. I listened to one of their PRs, I think the IOM PR or something. She's a rep here. She did say that, look, they would follow up. Okay, they will follow up to make sure they are well integrated in the communities. But as to how that is going to be done is
exactly.
But
it would have helped.
Social welfare should take that responsibility.
I think
they should mount, because, excuse my language, the Hajj village is not being used now. But it's a place that can house people, so they can just take them there. If it is a day or two, something should happen. At least
a good suggestion.
They should be.
There was a gentleman who even said that he was getting rotten. He said
he was for a year.
One at a time, please. One at a
so
time.
they should be screened. We should screen them in terms of their mental stability and health. Very important.
It's very important,
before they are allowed to roam freely.
Honorable, 30 seconds.
1 second. That even if they listen and review their ordeals, we can then play it out to discourage others.
That's true.
I can't agree more.
I was making
let him. I'll come to you. Take it easy.
These videos that we have seen, we have seen the faces of some of these criminals. who are perpetuating these things in the crime. I have seen some of them. We have seen them. They are human beings who can be arrested and tried, because genocide and whatever form of international crime, it's applicable everywhere. If it was a sitting head of state or a military officer who we had video evidence of committing that crime, the Western powers would have flown their air jets in the evening, gone to his house, arrested him, taking him somewhere and charged him for crime against humanity. These are crimes against humanity. Why can't we punish them? Because we've seen their faces in the video. Why can't we pick them up and punish them?
Yeah.
Because there's nobody, and one of the persons I heard, he said the truth is that they are no soul to go and work. He said they are no soul to go and work, but their human parts are harvested. Wow. Yes.
So
he said they are not sold to go and work. Which farms are they going to work on in Europe? And that's, he said, according to him, I mean, that was what I'm saying. Or in the Gulf countries. He said most of them, because kidney, liver, they are in high demand in these areas. Oh, no. That is what he said. He said their parts are harvested.
Right.
Because you can't harvest a dead person's human parts. Okay. So they are sold, they are put on some medical, and then their parts are harvested and resold.
This is interesting.
So that is actually what is happening. And these are crimes against humanity.
So that should be,
exactly.
Right.
And I think with the videos that have come out, there should be, if it's because we've seen international courts, ad hoc courts being set up to try wars against humanity by Africans, allegedly. We can set up an ad hoc court by the AU to try these people that we have seen their faces.
Bobby, I only hope sometime what also comes on the media is not
I allow him.
Yes.
It's not also
when you are
taking hook and line.
Bit of propaganda, if you like,
But you would interrogate it some more.
That is what I'm saying. That if we interrogate them and
listening to some of them,
meet them and
Honorable, you have your say.
We will be able to find the truth in some of these things. But I think with the AU angle, they should take it up, set up ad hoc court to try these people, whether the government is in Benghazi or Tripoli. These human beings have not acted. They are not acts of the country. These crimes are not acts of the country.
Right.
That will say that it's a crime committed by the state of Libya. No. These are individuals who are committing war crimes against humanity.
Perhaps then you could come in later in the day to do damage control by doing this. That wouldn't be bad at all if they could do that.
My interest is in the Ministry of Social Welfare.
To take on, I mean, that is a fabulous
very important
idea
that they do
you brought up out there. Yes, Honorable, you've been itching to, yes.
I've been itching because when I was listening to Bobby, it reminded me of what I have listened to on radio, certain statements even made by members of parliament and some, if you like, international relations aspects. And I was wondering whether the international relations I did in Legon was different. I have listened to the argument that we should go with a military intervention.
I didn't say that.
No, not you. Okay. I'm saying that listening to you.
I thought you were going to say something in respect of what you were saying. Okay.
Yes, I'll say that.
This point
I have
listened.
I have listened to that argument that is being made, whether military intervention. Now, today, Bob is talking about the fact that the faces of those people can be identified. We saw the videos. There should be an intervention. It is not as simple as that. A United States of America ambassador was killed. The faces of those who attacked the embassy, in fact, attacking an embassy itself is a serious crime under the Vienna Convention of Diplomatic Relations. They attacked the embassy. They didn't just attack the embassy, they killed the ambassador. The faces of those people are known. Why is it that America, with all the military might and other, they haven't been? So Libya is not as simple as we look at it. The point you made that I think is of interest and which we need to look at has to do with the screening. And mine is not just about the health or the psychological position of the people. There is ISIS in Libya.
Security risk, totally.
There is Al Qaeda in Libya.
Totally.
And they were
now, have we asked our question as to those who are coming home? How long have each of them been in Libya? How did they go to Libya? Did they join ISIS? So it is not only the Minister of Gender, which I agree, the National Security ought to have been involved. In fact, the first thing they ought to have done, when I was watching it, frankly speaking, I was assuming that all these things would have been done. I am shocked. When I was watching it, I thought that the first thing that government would have done house these people, interrogate them, investigate these people, do proper screening. And I can tell you that you would have identified those of them who have been who have been indoctrinated. Look, there is no doubt in anybody's mind that there has been recruitment of Ghanaians. You remember there were some students from KNUST.
You know, so
recruitment of Ghanaians. Kamal, can I finish?
That's a reality.
There have been recruitment of Ghanaians to Libya to join ISIS.
It wouldn't be far-fetched to say that it's possible.
To join ISIS. Now, these people, if they now know that there is a plan to bring Ghanaians home, now, assuming that someone has joined ISIS, he has been operating. He feels uncomfortable because he thinks that his life is now threatened. He sees an opportunity to come home. Such a person would come home. And I can tell you, in instances like what will happen in Turkey, when they open the gates for people to move in Europe, you know, initially German and others, that ISIS themselves allowed some of their people to go in as refugees. And they went in these European countries to set up cells, either for recruitment or for attacks. So what we needed to do was to have done that, but it's still not late.
It's not.
I think that the National Security Coordinator or the Minister for National Security and others can still do some thorough investigation on the background of these individuals. And I think it's very,
I think your point is well made. Quickly, because we need to touch on Farmers' Day. We can't go without touching on that. So quickly, please, 30 seconds.
It's not all operations carried out by the national security that we sit here and then we are privy to. No, not all. So let us be charitable to them.
But the point is, you're going to drop them at circle.
That's what I'm saying, that government, we should be charitable to government.
Okay.
And I'm very sure that
we know that national security has eyes and ears everywhere.
They move from the airport
but you're leaving them at circle. That is an issue.
Not all operations.
But anyways,
that's what we actually saw on TV.
That's
we don't
fine.
know what is behind the scenes.
That's fine.
Okay.
So we believe that national security has eyes and ears everywhere, so they'll follow them wherever they go. But ideally, I think what you're saying would have been, you know, the best. House them and then let's move on. Quickly, please. Less than 9 minutes to look at Farmers' Day. 33rd edition yesterday. We had winners. Congratulations to the winners. I think I have their names here. Quickly acknowledge them. That's Philip Kweku Ajimine. He was the National Best Farmer 2017 from the Brown region. The first runner-up is Mabel Akoto Kujo in Hohoi Volta region. And the second runner-up is Rebecca Ann Komi from the Gar South Municipal Assembly. Congratulations to you all.
Two ladies, that's important.
That's very important, yes. But the question is, how relevant is the occasion to farmers, the country as a whole? GAWU, Ghana Agricultural Workers Union, has come out to say that the government should scrap it. I mean, they are supposed to be represented, of course, not representing the entire of farmers and fishermen, but they have a certain representative, you know.
I disagree with that.
They are saying that. What do you think? Quickly around the table. Kasi say, we could move on. Kasi say, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, quickly.
I think that Gawu got it wrong, and I'm going to see my senior. He was my senior in school, Edward Gadwe. I'm going to take him on personally. First of all, we have to know the history.
I disagree.
At the time that, I still call him Chairman Rollins, instituted this, it had a very serious relevance. People, remember, those of us from the rural background, we have always thought that the city dwellers are taking the major part of the national cake. If for nothing at all, one day was dedicated to farmers. The symbolism in itself should not be wished away.
At all.
Number two, there are people from the hinterland who actually won these prizes. The Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Agriculture, Philip Abayori, himself was a small-time farmer in Tono Irrigation Dam. Subsequently, he has gone ahead. 3, it made the farmer know that there is dignity in the job that they are doing. Please don't let us get up today and all of a sudden say that there is.
For me,
please come out.
Let him land.
I told you.
Let him land. Yes. No, that's fine. Carry on.
There is, and it is not as if Farmers' Day has taken so much resources away from Ghana. As a nation, we have been paying lip service to the mechanization, to the re-injection of capital into the agri sector.
Very well.
So don't let us scapegoat the Farmers' Day.
So, come on.
Because
the argument, to push it further, the argument is that the resources there used for the celebration, the prizes, could be channeled into other areas, because the example they are saying extension officers don't have the logistics to carry on with their work, and perhaps if we channeled such resources, we could get things going.
So you ask simple question: with or without extension officers, do we have farmers in Ghana or not? We do. So if with or without extension of that we have farmers, and
but
we
that
say
isn't
that, look, let's
that
put
isn't
a
to
day-
underplay
No,
or they underestimate the
It's important.
relevance
I'm not saying
of
it's not.
extension officers.
We need agro-based, if you like, technicians or technocrats to help us, get our agri development. But I'm saying that with or without them, do we still have farmers? Yes. And if we do have farmers, what then is wrong with someone saying, let's put a day aside, acknowledge them, glorify them, and of course, if we do have something to honor them, we do honor them and all that. Then someone says, no, let's scrap it, it's not proper. Yes, the argument could be advanced further. Let us not make this talk about Farmers' Day and it ends there.
Yes.
No, we need to put policies in place that will get farming or make farming attractive to all of us. That is what is important. In Israel, if you are a farmer, you are well respected. Yeah. It's sexy to be a farmer in Israel. No, it is. No, in quotes. No, I mean, it's fantastic.
The moral decadence.
Okay. No, you should understand me. I'm talking in context. I know what I'm... No,
please allow him.
At least been exposed.
At least it's better than what some people do. Well, you see, I'm saying that. I'm saying that. In Israel and other jurisdictions, you go there and you are a farmer. You see, you bluff with it. It's respected. But over here in Ghana, it's quite terrible. Point is, if the government of the day says, let us get about 100,000 people enrolled, and we're looking at the agri sector, it should not be rhetorics.
Very well. Thank you.
Government of the day says we are putting money to make sure that what we have gotten in the past, which has now plummeted and gone down, we are going to saw it up. Let us not be rhetorics.
Thank you very much, Kamaldeen. Let me move to let's put some statistics quickly. Agriculture, we keep on saying the agri sector. Please, we have 2 minutes to go. We keep on saying agri is the backbone of our economy and everything, but consistently we see a certain decline.
Yeah.
Over the past 10 years or so, we've seen that decline, and when there are budgetary cuts for austerity reasons, we see agri as one of the sectors that suffers. Yeah. In 2016, we had 40 million or so of the budgetary allocation cut and all of that. So when we say agri is the backbone... 2017,
we had it cut.
If we say agri is the backbone of the economy and we should do things, really?
Abena,
are we walking the talk?
Well, Abena, I want to comment on this because, one, I'm a farmer, I engage in it, and my father was a very serious farmer, and I have been engaged in it. Kamal has abandoned it. I can understand for politics. Abena, what? Yeah, but you have abandoned it. Abena, the point is that this year, Abena. So congratulations to
the
those who have
the
won.
winners and all.
I disagree with those who think that they shouldn't be celebrated. I think that is a day that is recognized for the contribution of farmers. For me, even peasant farmers. Abena, the argument is that we are losing about 60 to 65 million Ghana cedis anytime we have this holiday being declared. But the point is that it is not as if the money is lying there. So if you don't celebrate, you have the money. So we should get that very clear. And the argument is that government should channel that money into supporting farmers. Now, if we don't celebrate it, you can't have the money. It's just the money that we are losing. But if you look at the 2018 budget that was presented and the outcome of the 2017 budget, government indeed, we made some strides in the agri sector.
In fact, there was a growth.
But the growth was not attributed to planting for food and jobs.
Of course, no, it couldn't have. Planting for food and jobs was just started. It couldn't have.
Oh, please.
It couldn't have. Yes, you can. But I'm just saying.
Can I don't.
Nobody should even think.
My interest is not the same. Allow me to make.
Carry on.
My interest is. Let me make my point, please.
Please carry on.
I'm saying that the government claimed that the growth in the agri subsector is as a result of the planting for food and jobs. That's an absolute lie.
Very well. Let me take Bobby's comment. No, but the time is out, and I need Bobby's comment. Don't ask me those questions. I don't think it's fair. The time is up.
Are you being fair to me, Abena?
I am.
I am saying that
just a minute.
Bobby, you are settling fertilizers.
Honourable, let's hear Bobby's view. Gentlemen, please. Please.
You came and lied to Ghanaians.
Yes.
You came and lied to
The only
Ghanaians.
thing I want to add on this Farmers' Day, yes, I agree it should not be scrapped. But
can you restate that because of the noise?
Yes,
because Abena herself.
You think it should be?
It should not be scrapped.
It shouldn't be.
No, it should not be scrapped. My only difficulty with it, and I know all of you have said you grew up from a farming community. I grew up in Osu, which is a fishing community.
17% negative growth.
And I have spent time in Winneba, Apam, which is also a highly, concentrated fishing community.
-17.
When you read the awardees, and that has been the trend, no fisherman. No, let me land. Yeah, let me land.
Let him land, please, quickly. In fact, I need to wrap up.
Let me finish.
-17%.
Is giving that kind of prominence that the farmers get.
Okay.
That is my only concern. Yeah, that is what I was going to say. Yes.
Okay.
That is what I'm going to. That is what I will say.
No, but if they are giving, is that they just go and harvest.
No,
well, we need to. But don't underplay that. Let him land. And then wrap up.
Yes, it is because we are not giving them that recognition.
Exactly.
Then we are giving farmers. That is why our fishing industry.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have for the show this morning. Obviously, it's getting heated, but we need to go. Thanks to Kasi Seriki Pepra. Tthanks to Kamaldeen Abdullahi, Honorable Murtala Mohammed, and Bobby Banton. Thank you so much for sharing your Saturday morning with us. We'll be back same time next week. Until then, have a good weekend and a productive week. Bye-bye.
Do you know something?